Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. I, a disciple of the god of law, became the biggest villain at the beginning. Chapter 41. As the oldest academy on the continent, Saint Laurent School of Magic only enrolls about 1,000 students each year, and there are more than 6,000 students studying in the academy. There are at least 500 trainee teachers as mentors and assistants to specialized doctors. No one can tell exactly how many specialized doctors there are. After all, many old guys came to the academy a long time ago. Some people may go into seclusion for a long time for a certain research. In addition, they are all old, and it is unknown whether they are still alive after seclusion, so no one can tell. As for the formal mentors, that is, the strong men in the holy domain, there were originally 27 people in the academy. Now there is Lin N, that is, 28 people. The new year has just passed, and it is the enrollment season for the new year. Saint Laurent School of Magic enrolls students every year, but the enrollment time is not fixed. Some are in autumn, some are in spring, and each enrollment lasts for a year. In the past, after the enrollment in the autumn of the year, the spring enrollment will be enrolled the next day. This is to allow students who did not catch up last autumn to be able to take the assessment smoothly in the spring. After all, this continent is so huge that many young magicians in remote areas cannot arrive within a month even if they rush day and night after receiving the recruitment information. The spring of the next year is prepared for them. Every year, Saint Laurent Magic Academy will become a hot spot on the continent. And this year's spring enrollment naturally suppressed other information in an instant. On the overpass of the academy, countless students and parents who accompanied the students gathered again. There are many nobles among them. Of course, in spring, there are more civilians. After all, if they are great nobles, they have received the news in advance and have already rushed here in autumn. In fact, Saint Laurent really recruits in autumn. After all, only noble families have the conditions to cultivate magic seeds, and it is too rare for civilians to become magicians. In addition to the problem of origin, many of them are of mixed quality. But the reason why Saint Laurent leaves a way for civilians is to prevent real geniuses from being lost. And the academy didn't care much about this year's spring enrollment. But who knew that it actually recruited several geniuses with excellent magic talents? And all of them are from commoner families. This result surprised the academy. Of course, they were more delighted. After all, being able to recruit talented magic seeds is a happy thing. As time went by, the spring enrollment finally came to an end. The spring enrollment usually has about 300 people. Those who successfully enrolled were excited, while those who failed returned with regret. It is worth mentioning that in this enrollment, there were also several students who became celebrities as soon as they entered the school. However, Lin N did not pay much attention to these. With the end of the spring enrollment, he, as the new tutor of the academy, will also start teaching. As a tutor, this is Lin N's first time. Although he is not nervous, he still has to do his job well. Write the textbooks for class. This is not difficult for him. It just wastes some time. Besides, he is also looking forward to his upcoming tutor career. Saint Laurent School of Magic. A crisp bell sounded in the morning mist. It was just early morning, and the leaves and grass in the morning were still covered with a thin layer of frost, which sparkled from afar. When the sun rises, these frosts will turn into round water droplets and slowly slide down. When the sun really rises, these water droplets will be completely evaporated and disappear. Their lives are so short, but there is no doubt that in their short lives, they sparkle with brilliant luster. At this time, the transparent water droplets reflected colorful light in the sun, reflecting the ancient school gate not far away. The students coming and going stepped into the gate with their heads held high. They were all dressed in gorgeous magic robes, full of vigor and vitality, with an upward breath. Among these people, a little girl slowly walked to the door of the academy. She looked at the gate that was exactly the same as in her memory and smiled nostalgically. She was wearing a large magic robe, covering her thin body, like a straight tree trunk covered with a grain bag. Her sallow face showed traces of sorrow. But it was still possible to see that the girl's cheeks were very pretty. If she could get enough nutrition, she would definitely become a pearl in the crowd. Just like now, the girl's skin was a little sallow, and even looked a little shabby, but this could not stop her confidence, which brought her a lot of vitality and made her exude a breath of tenacious survival like weeds. She walked along the road in her memory. The overpass of Saint Laurent Magic Academy was very long. There were more than 9,000 steps, one layer after another, and it was too difficult for a thin girl to climb up. But the girl didn't say a word, just gritted her teeth and went up. Step by step. Finally, when she reached the entrance of the academy, she was already panting and sweating all over. When she walked into the academy, she followed her memory and walked into the classroom of Grade 1 Class 3 with her head held high. Standing at the door and looking around, she thought that her arrival would attract some attention, but what disappointed her was that everyone in the class was doing their own things. Some were reading books, some were meditating silently, and no one was looking at her. The little girl didn't care, and quietly found an empty seat to sit down, while secretly observing the reactions and actions of others. This is Emin. I remember that he became a 7-star great magician in the end. Isn't the one in front of him feminine? I heard that he went to explore a secret place and died tragically. Even his body couldn't be found. It's such a pity. And that Coleridge Ruth, I heard that after graduation, her family arranged for her to marry an earl and live a happy life. Every time the little girl saw someone, her past memories would emerge in her mind. She commented in her heart wantonly. Looking at the classmates who were still full of vitality and confidence in the future sitting in the class at this moment, a sense of superiority arose spontaneously in her heart. I know your future, she thought with pride. Just when she was secretly proud of herself, a tall boy sitting in the front row of the class suddenly came over. When she saw this person, the little girl immediately recalled her memory and knew that this person was the class monitor. In her previous life, he was said to be the son of the Duke. Later, he not only inherited the Duke's title and owned a duchy of his own, but also practiced magic to the level of a great magician, and lived a very happy life. The abominable thing is that she didn't know that this person was so hidden in her previous life. Otherwise, if she had conquered him, wouldn't she have nothing to worry about in the future? She thought so. Seeing that the class monitor was also very handsome, she secretly thought that she didn't know what happened in her previous life. She didn't fall in love with this excellent class monitor. It was a pity. But it's not too late now. She thought so she raised her eyebrows, her eyes turned, and she smiled and said, "Dear class monitor Blair, what's the matter with you? How do you know my name?" Blair frowned and looked at the little girl with yellow skin smiling and showing a mouthful of teeth. But there were still vegetable leaves left over from breakfast in the gaps between her teeth. More importantly, there was a smell as soon as she opened her mouth, which probably meant she hadn't brushed her teeth. But the little girl still showed her teeth and smiled unconsciously, and Blair suddenly felt nauseous. He suppressed his displeasure and said in a stiff tone, "Where is your homework? The college assigned homework to freshmen, and you are the only one in the class who hasn't handed it in." Hearing this, Lilith's smile froze immediately. After she was reborn, she was only busy with happiness, so how could she care about homework? After a pause, she had to say awkwardly, "That. I came in a hurry today, and I left my homework at home and forgot to bring it." Blair's eyes fell on Lilith, examining her without concealing anything. Such an excuse was originally very poor, and Blair didn't believe it at all. But when he thought that this little girl actually came to school without brushing her teeth, he immediately believed it a little bit. More importantly, as soon as the girl spoke, a strong smell came out, which made Blair, who had a slight mysophobia, feel nauseous and didn't want to talk to the little girl. After thinking about it, he nodded and said, "Then give it to me quickly. If you haven't given it to me before class, explain it to the instructor yourself." After that, Blair left in a hurry. Lilith looked at Blair's fleeing back and couldn't help but smile slightly. "I thought he was really a pure little boy. It was easy to hold him firmly in my hand." Her deskmate was a girl with a pretty face and a sweet smile. At this time, she was gossiping with her classmates and besties she had just met, and she had no time to pay attention to her. Lilith felt bored, so she simply lay on the table and looked at Blair, the monitor, who was sitting in the front row. Today, Blair, the monitor, was wearing a black robe, which was tailored very well, and it was even more clean and tidy on him, without any flaws. At this time, the sun rose, and the light shone through the trees outside the classroom, casting mottled sunlight on his delicate face. His delicate features seemed to be covered with a hazy halo at this moment. A breeze blew over, blowing the fluff on Kylie's face, adding a touch of youthfulness and vitality. Lilith looked at his face and was a little absent-minded for a while. Blair. His full name is Resner Blair. He is the prince of the Resner Principality under the Holy Empire, with a distinguished family background, and he himself is the first heir to the Resner Principality. Among the students, Blair is very low-key. After 5 years of classmates, no one knew that he was the eldest son of a duke. However, Lilith recalled the style of this monitor Blair in the class in her mind, and immediately found a clue. When this monitor was in school, his daily clothes were very exquisite and his behavior was very appropriate, which showed that his family education and family accomplishment were very good. In addition, his achievements were even more terrifying. Lilith remembered that in her previous life, Blair always won first place in various tests in the class. In the past few years since he enrolled in the Magic Academy, Blair has never dropped from the first place. Such a terrible learning talent, coupled with his extremely beautiful appearance, and proper and elegant conversation and behavior, made him the target of many girls in the academy during the 5 years he studied in the academy. Even those senior girls were very fond of Blair, the junior, and many of them even boldly confessed their love. Lilith was no exception. She was originally from an ordinary family. Because she was close to Saint Laurent School of Magic, she planned to go there to try. As a result, who would have thought that she would suddenly perform exceptionally well during the exam and enter the school at the tail end of the entrance test? The subsequent test also detected that she had a magic talent that was neither high nor low. Therefore, she was very lucky to enter Saint Laurent, the most top magic school on the continent, and was fortunate to be assigned to the same class with Blair and become his classmate. Lilith should have paid attention to this classmate Blair, but in the 5 years at the school, she did not say a word to this low-key eldest son of the Duke until she became a stranger after graduation, and her life trajectory was completely staggered. In her previous life, when she learned about Blair's deeds, it was already a long time later. At that time, she was poor and destitute. After learning about Blair's identity, she often fell into self-pity. Why didn't she seize the opportunity during her student days? Until now, even though she has been reborn once, she still thinks that her family background and appearance in her previous life were too bad, so she couldn't be looked at by the son of the Duke. But now, she, Lilith, has been reborn and got a huge golden finger. She believes that she will definitely transform into a white, rich and beautiful woman and conquer Blair, a cold and arrogant academic master who seems to belong to the abstinence system. Just when Lilith imagined this in her heart, her deskmate looked at Lilith in surprise, wondering why this classmate showed such an expression. Could it be that he was possessed? You were possessed. Fortunately, Lilith didn't know what this classmate was thinking, otherwise she would definitely refute it like this. This deskmate also left some impressions in Lilith's heart. I remember that in the previous life, she didn't live a rich life, but just married a country viscount. But what made Lilith more envious was that the viscount was very good to her, and could be said to be obedient. There is no doubt that this is a very happy thing for women. In her previous life, Lilith was so jealous when she learned about this, but now she was reborn, and she had a golden finger, so she naturally disdained to communicate with such a country viscountess. As time passed, the students soon arrived. At this time, there was still some time before the class started, and the instructor had not come yet. The trainee teacher who assisted the instructor in completing the course came in and collected the homework. When she learned that Lilith was the only one in the class who had not handed in the homework, the trainee teacher asked for the reason. But Lilith was speechless. The trainee teacher had just graduated and stayed in school, so he naturally knew Lilith's situation. In addition, Lilith's skin was sallow, which was caused by malnutrition. So she didn't do her homework, and she should be short of money. After all, the homework of the magic research course often consumes some money to buy magic materials. Thinking of this, the trainee teacher kindly reminded, it doesn't matter if you can't afford the magic materials for writing. Just remember to make up your homework in the future. In addition, there will be a new instructor in the academy to teach you. You must leave a good impression. Your foundation is not good. If you don't understand something, you must remember to ask me or ask your classmates. Everyone will help you enthusiastically. After that, the trainee teacher gave Lilith a comforting smile, and then left with the homework. Lilith stood there, her face flushed. Feeling the surprised eyes of the classmates around her, Lilith couldn't help but clenched her fists. Isn't it just homework? What's so great about it? Why do you have to say it to my face? Isn't it because I'm poor? Can poverty look down on people? She felt that her dignity was trampled on the ground, and her drooping hands couldn't help but clenched secretly. Sooner or later, I will make you regret it. Dong, dong, dong. The bell for class rang. The boys and girls who had just entered school and were still full of excitement hurried back to their seats and sat upright. Blair, who was sitting in the front row, also woke up from his closed eyes. Although it was the highest-level magic school on the continent like Saint Laurent, the magic knowledge taught to freshmen was still some elementary basics. Blair had already understood this knowledge thoroughly when he was very young. But Blair still made himself cheer up. Just because, this is Saint Laurent. Blair, who was concentrating, could feel that the girls in the class were secretly looking at him. He had been used to such sights since he was a child, so it didn't cause him any trouble. But today was different. He could always feel a burning sight coming from behind him, staying on his face and body for a long time. This sight was so unscrupulous that he felt a long-lost discomfort. Blair frowned, but in the end he didn't say anything. This was their first class after they enrolled. As usual, it was a magic knowledge course. This meant that all magicians entered this mysterious field because of knowledge. Although magic has been passed down to this day, few people have specialized in magic knowledge, but such habits and inheritance have not changed. Many students have speculated who their magic knowledge instructor is. Blair, you are the class monitor, you should know who is the instructor who teaches our magic knowledge course. At this time, a student sitting on the left side of Blair asked excitedly. Blair looked straight ahead and shook his head gently, I don't know. The voice was clear and had a hint of magnetism, which made people feel very comfortable. Lilith, who was secretly looking at Blair, blushed when she heard the voice. She couldn't help but secretly glance at Blair again, and the latter sensed this sight and frowned and looked back. That's the one. Is it going to stop? He hasn't looked away from me all morning. You have no manners. You have no shame as a girl. Blair already felt a little uncomfortable with this girl with sallow skin and who didn't brush her teeth. Now he felt even more disgusted. However, Lilith didn't have that thought at the moment. When she saw Blair's eyes on her, she lowered her head shyly. She pinched the hem of her skirt with both hands, and her knuckles turned white because of the force. He looked at me. His eyes were so focused, and his eyes were so gentle. Could he have developed a crush on me? Lilith felt a little secretly happy. Besides that, she felt a little complacent. Blair, who had no idea what Lilith was imagining, felt sick when he saw Lilith's coy posture. At the same time, other people in the class were still guessing. I guess the one who teaches us magic knowledge should be Saint Mage Tuan, right? I remember that Saint Mage Tuan teaches the magic knowledge course for first-year students every year, and this year should be no exception. But why did I hear that Saint Mage Tuan had been in seclusion last year and there has been no news for a long time? I don't think he can come out this year. Who else could it be besides Saint Mage Tuan? Oh, what are you guessing? Have you forgotten what the trainee teacher said just now? There is a new instructor this year. New instructor? Could it be His Highness Lin En? How is it possible? His Highness Lin En is such a high-ranking person, and he has just become a Saint Mage. How could he come to teach us? The classmates were talking about it. Some people guessed that it was Lin En, but as soon as they said it, they were disbelieved by the classmates around them. Lilith listened to their discussion and sneered in her heart. Others didn't know, but she knew very well that the person in charge of their magic knowledge course was an old woman who had entered the Holy Realm. Her name was Margaret. She was originally the administrator in charge of the library. Later, she returned to the front line of teaching. Because of her old-fashioned personality, many people in the class were scolded by her during teaching. Even Blair, the academic bully, was not spared. In Lilith's previous life, because of her poor academic performance, she was often punished by her teacher Margaret. After being reborn this time, Lilith was still thinking that after she rose to power, she must find an opportunity to take revenge on the eccentric Margaret magician. However, just as the classmates were talking about it, as the bell for the formal class of the academy rang, a slender and dignified figure walked in. He slowly walked to the podium, and glanced at the whole class indifferently, revealing a sense of alienation and detachment in his eyes, as if nothing in the world could leave a mark in his heart. He faced the whole class and then said softly, "I am Lin En, you should know me more or less, from now on, I will be your magic knowledge course instructor." Boom! With one sentence, all the students in the class were stunned. The next moment, it was boiling. Everyone looked at Lin En excitedly, with shock on their faces that could not be concealed. His Highness Lin En. It was really His Highness Lin En. Their magic knowledge instructor was actually His Highness Lin En. This was simply a shocking news. Everyone could foresee that once the people in the academy knew that His Highness Lin En was their magic knowledge instructor, I am afraid that all the students in the academy would look at their first year class 3 with envy. Everyone was in great joy. However, only Lilith was stunned. There was no trace of joy on her face, but panic. How could it be Lin En? In her memory, wasn't it the old woman Margaret who was responsible for teaching them magic knowledge? Why is their teacher completely different from the person in her memory? What is going on? Is there a confusion in my memory, or is there some change in this world? The change of the instructor is a trivial matter, but through this trivial matter, a terrifying thing can be seen. That is, some events in this world have changed. The reason why Lilith can reach a high position in this life is because of her foresight. But if she loses this advantage, can she still reach a high position smoothly? Lilith was full of panic. Lin En glanced at Lilith, looking at this lucky person who was blessed by God, but was stunned at this moment. His face was calm, but he sighed silently in his heart. A loser is a loser. Even if she lives again, even if she is blessed by God, even if she has a golden finger, she still can't change her loser nature. She only wants to rely on foresight, and once there is any change, she will be panicked and unable to control herself. This kind of mentality. Lin En shook his head. But this is a good thing for him. After all, a loser is lucky. It will make it easier for him to take action. Next, I will tell you about the knowledge related to magic. Lin En spoke softly. His voice was clear and bright, like pearls and jades, warm and delicate. Have you learned relevant magic knowledge before entering school? While speaking, Lin En looked at the students under the podium. In the Magic Academy, each class has 50 students. Not too many, not too few. Listening to Lin En's words, Blair, as the class monitor, sitting under the podium, answered immediately, "Teacher Lin En, I have counted before class, and most of them have reviewed in advance and learned basic theory and application of constructing magic star tracks. In this case, let's start from here, but considering that some students have not reviewed, I will mention some of the basic magic knowledge before when I talk about it." Lin En nodded, and then said, "Okay, now turn the book to page 5. Listening to Lin En's words, under the podium, most of the students came back to their senses from the shock and opened their books one after another. However, while flipping through the books, many female and even male classmates, even Blair, were secretly looking at Lin En, sizing up his gorgeous face. If someone was watching at this moment, they would find that the eyes of these female classmates were all shining, as bright as stars. In the past, magic knowledge classes were boring and tedious, but this time, because of Lin En's presence, everyone sat upright, looked straight ahead and listened carefully. Just to leave a good impression in Lin En's heart. Of course, they also knew. With their status and position, they dared not expect anything at all, which was not very realistic. They just subconsciously pursued beautiful things according to their thoughts. Under their gaze, Lin En was talking while writing down some knowledge points that needed to be mastered on the magic stone wall. He held the staff and left lines and handwriting on the magic stone wall. The hand stretched out, the joints were clear like jade, the fingers were slender and looked warm and delicate, and the slender figure was well set off by the black robe. At this time, the sun was shining outside, casting a shadow on Lin En. The dust in the air jumped under the sun, like cute elves. They surrounded Lin En, floating up and down, floating left and right, looking very lively. The students were stunned for a while when they saw this scene. Most of the class had passed. After Lin En finished teaching a key point, he personally gave a question and planned to choose a classmate to solve it. He clearly saw that Lilith had not come back to her senses yet, and looked absent-minded and dazed, so Lin En said calmly, "Lilith, tell me how to solve this problem." Lilith had not come back to her senses, and was still in a trance. She was still immersed in the fact that the substitute tutor was not selected correctly. Until everyone turned their eyes to her, until her deskmate carefully pulled Lilith's sleeve, she suddenly realized it. But she didn't know what happened in the class, and looked around in a daze. "Lilith, tell me how to solve this problem." At this time, Lin En repeated his question again. The blackboard is just a basic magic knowledge. Anyone who can step into the magic apprenticeship will definitely know it. If Lilith calms down, she will be able to give a solution soon. But at this time, she was confused. Looking at the words on the magic stone wall, she felt dazed and her mind was blank. She lowered her head, pursed her lips, and said nothing. But her heart was screaming wildly. It's this scene again. It's this scene again. In the last life, the old woman Margaret made her lose face in front of the whole class. Even if she changed someone in this life, it would still be the same. Why did everyone target her? She was resentful. Resent Lin En for making her look bad, and also resent the inaction of the classmates around her, and even resent her deskmate. She hesitated and was silent for a long time, and finally said awkwardly, I don't know. Sit down. Lin En didn't say much, but nodded slightly, motioning her to sit down. Then he looked around the room and shouted, "Blair, you answer." Blair, who was sitting in the front row, stood up and told the answer directly. And he answered in the most concise way, without any procrastination. "Very good." Lin En nodded and asked Blair to sit down. "It seems that your magic knowledge is very solid. How far have you learned by yourself?" "I have learned most of the required courses from grade 1 to grade 5 by myself. Recently, I am studying the one-star magic fireball technique, hoping to make it more suitable for my own physique and talent." Blair said frankly without hiding anything. He knew that this statement would be suspected of showing off in front of other people. But in front of Lin En, it was not worth mentioning at all. "Not bad." As expected, Lin En listened, nodded tightly, and said not bad. "But this sentence is good, it seems to have magic," and it instantly cheered up Blair, and his face was also full of joy. As the eldest son of the Duke, Blair has been well-fed and well-clothed since he was a child, and his status is respected. He doesn't have many hobbies, he just hopes to make achievements in the way of magic. At the same time, he also admires the strong. The older generation of sanctuary magicians are all the older generation after all. Among the young people of his age, only Lin En makes him admire, even worship. Because of this, he could have gone to the Holy Empire Royal Magic Academy with his identity, but he still followed Lin En and came to Saint Laurent. He wanted to be a loyal follower of His Highness Lin En. No one knows that when he saw that His Highness Lin En was his own mentor, he was almost so excited that he couldn't speak. In his heart, His Highness Lin En is comparable to a god. It is the ideal he will follow all his life, whether in the way of magic or in the country. If it is magic, he is willing to be His Highness Lin En's servant on the magic road. If His Highness Lin En is willing to fight for the succession to the Holy Empire, he is willing to devote the power of the principality to be loyal to His Highness. Lin En didn't know Blair's thoughts. Even if he knew, he didn't care much. He was still teaching. The students were listening carefully. Lin En spread his own holy domain and enveloped everyone. Because of the influence of the domain in the dark, these students were unconsciously focused and listened attentively. This situation continued until the bell rang and Lin En left the classroom. The students in the class suddenly realized and walked out of the special state before. But even afterwards, many people still recall the feeling of concentration and tranquility. This is a state they have never experienced before. It's very novel. Because of this, their evaluation of Lin En, the newly appointed tutor, has been raised to the highest level. After all, who doesn't like a strong person who teaches so well? More importantly, this tutor is still so handsome. And who would reject beautiful things? After school, Lilith returned to her home. Although studying at the Magic Academy is free, living in the academy requires an expensive fee. Lilith's family can't afford the money, so she can only go home after school. Her home is very simple, in a small town outside the Saint Laurent Magic Academy. At first there was no town, just a deserted place. Later, because the students in the academy brought servants, they lived nearby, and gradually more people came. Because of their existence, some savvy vendors opened shops here. Later, the popularity became more and more active, and many people came here to make a living. The Empire also specially sent personnel and mayors to manage it. Standing at the door of her house, looking at the mottled walls, low houses, and dusty walls. The dense green shade around is the decoration of the town, but it blocks these poor people, and even a little sunlight can hardly penetrate. The cold and damp feeling has been permeating around Lilith. She looked at the house and the people in it with some disdain. Her ancestors came from other places to make a living. They lived here for several generations before gradually taking root. By the time of her parents' generation, they finally saved enough money to start a small business and sell some breakfast in the town. Although they didn't make much money, it was stable. At least, they didn't have to worry about food and clothing. Among the common people, they belonged to the level of having some assets. With such a family background, if Lilith studied magic well, she would marry a viscount and become a lady after graduation, or even the concubine of an earl, which would be enough for her to live a relaxed life. Even if she went out to take risks, she could earn a lord or even a baron in the future. But unfortunately, Lilith didn't care about these. What she wanted was to be relaxed and become a noble lady without any effort. Therefore, after entering the Magic Academy, what she learned was not to work hard, but to compare. Compare with those girls from noble families. Luxurious clothes, beautiful shoes, exquisite jewelry, even their family background and appearance have become the targets of their comparison. However, Lilith, who was immersed in the false prosperity, did not know that the luxury and comparison brought by her secretly cutting back on her clothes and even asking her parents for money were just pocket money for others. But even so, her comparison was very difficult. After all, others only spent their own pocket money, while Lilith used the hard-earned money accumulated by her family. How could this be compared? Of course, what she didn't know was that the so-called noble friends she made actually looked down on her behind her back. No one ever really regarded her as a friend, just because those people were nobles. And Lilith was just a commoner. People of different classes can never be friends. And Lilith didn't realize this at all. She had completely forgotten the essence of everything. The reason why she could stand and play with the noble girls was only because she was able to join the Saint Laurent School of Magic, and her talent was recognized by the nobles, but this did not mean that Lilith could now cross the class and become the kind of the nobles. Only when she truly became a powerful magician could she cross this class. But unfortunately, Lilith did not understand this. She was obsessed with this kind of comparison and vanity. And the target of comparison of these noble girls soon shifted to men. And this man soon noticed them. This man was a celebrity in the academy. After noticing Lilith and her group, he immediately launched an offensive against Lilith. Facing the pursuit of an elegant and graceful, noble, and the other party was also very handsome. Lilith didn't have time to think about why the other party would like her instead of pursuing those noble girls who pursued her, but it didn't matter. Lilith, who had already had a good impression of him, soon sank under such an offensive, and then the two fell in love. In Lilith's eyes, all she could see was that the clothes on this person were always so well cut, and whether he spoke or talked, he was elegant with aristocrats. She was completely immersed in it. Soon, Lilith became pregnant, and then the two began to talk about marriage. Lilith was a little nervous at first, fearing that the noble would not agree to get married, but who knew that this person agreed very readily. The two entered the marriage hall. On the Holy Continent, all people need to get married in the Church of the Holy See, and there will be priests to give blessings, but their wedding did not have these procedures. Even the other party's parents did not show up. It can be said to be very shabby. It doesn't match the other party's noble status at all. At this time, Lilith had a premonition that something was wrong. But at this time, she had no way out. She didn't want to believe it, and she didn't dare to believe it. But in fact, reality is often cruel. After getting married, Lilith soon found out that something was wrong. Vulgar words, dirty family, greasy face, and that fictitious family. Lilith finally realized that she had been deceived. This man is not a nobleman at all. He is just a liar. His so-called noble identity is also fake. And the elegance in his conversation and the so-called noble etiquette are just what he learned secretly. The clumsy noble etiquette is full of flaws and looks ridiculous in front of other real noble girls. Therefore, he naturally won't pursue those real noble girls. But unfortunately, Lilith can't see it. And when she understands it, it's too late. Lilith, who regretted it, cried and went back to find her parents, but her parents had been emptied by her, and all their savings were gone. What can they do for her? The ridicule of her former classmates and the contempt of people around her surrounded her all the time. Lilith, who could no longer bear it, finally made up her mind to divorce. She aborted the baby in her belly and tried her best to completely cut off the relationship with this man. The result was that she lost everything. With no money left, she could only return to her parents. At this time, her parents had no place to live, so they could only become servants in a family, and the family of 3 lived under someone else's roof. The hope of the whole family was placed on Lilith. I hope she can graduate from the academy, become a real magician, and make a name for herself in the future. But because she never studied well in the academy, and because of this incident, her magic grades were a mess. 5 years later, she could not pass the graduation test and was finally expelled from the Saint Laurent School of Magic. Although she only had the strength of a magic apprentice, which was much better than ordinary civilians, she was discouraged and gave up on herself. In the end, she married a seemingly honest businessman. This businessman only seemed honest. In fact, he often drank and went out drunk, and when he came back, he would often beat her. Lilith, whose edges were smoothed by life, no longer had the spirit she had before, and could only bear it silently. In the end, she accumulated too many hidden injuries in the endless beatings and scoldings, and the strength of the magic apprentice was not enough to recover her injuries. After she endured 20 years of waste, her body finally couldn't bear the burden and fell ill. However, what she didn't expect was that just after she fell ill, this businessman who beat and scolded her at every turn brought a new lover and married her home in front of her. Lilith was pissed to death. When she woke up, she found herself back to when she had just entered the Magic Academy. At this time, she hadn't married the liar, nor had she squandered all the assets in her family. She still had a bright future. To live again and return to the starting point, she still had too many choices. And with foresight and the golden finger brought by her rebirth, she believed that she would definitely get a different life. She believed that her fate would definitely be changed. She believed that she could live the life she wanted through her own means. Thinking about this in her mind, Lilith secretly clenched her fists. Slowly approaching the door of the house, pushing open the yard, she saw a woman wearing an apron and with a face full of hardships coming out. Seeing Lilith, she immediately smiled. "Lilith is back, come in and tell your mother about life in the college. Have you met your classmates? Are your classmates nice to you? Are the tutors very good? It should be very uncomfortable to study in the college for the first time. It's okay. Mom made your favorite food for you." The fragrance of food floated in the nagging instructions. This should have been a harmonious scene, but Lilith frowned. "Oh, don't nag around me, I'm so annoyed," she said unhappily. Lilith, who was thinking about something in her heart, was suddenly interrupted by her mother's nagging, and she was a little unhappy. She shouted subconsciously. As soon as this sentence came out, her mother froze in place, and the words she was about to say were stuck for a while. She seemed very at a loss. Their daughter. She was usually a docile and well-behaved daughter. What happened today? Could it be that she was wronged in the academy? The mother thought to herself. At the same time, Lilith looked at her mother with a stiff face and suddenly woke up. She just said something unintentionally, but it hurt her mother. But, if she was asked to apologize, Lilith couldn't open her mouth for a while. In the end, she could only shake her head and walk into her room, not seeing anyone. When the meal started, the exhausted father came back. But when he saw Lilith, he put aside his fatigue and asked about her well-being. But unfortunately, Lilith never showed any color, but spoke in a very aggressive tone. It made both parents very embarrassed. This meal ended in a cold atmosphere. After dinner, Lilith went straight back to her room and closed the door tightly. Listening to the loud bang of the door, the parents looked at each other. They didn't understand. Why did their daughter behave so abnormally today? Not only did she have a bad temper and attitude, but she also had an invisible isolation and alienation from them. Although Lilith didn't say a few words, as the closest parents, she could naturally sense it at the first time. Is this still their daughter? Could she be possessed by evil spirits? They thought so. But this shouldn't be the case. The people living in Saint Laurent Magic Academy are all big figures on the continent. If she is really possessed by evil spirits, they should not be unable to find out. The two looked at each other and then shook their heads. They have only one daughter in their family. Both husband and wife treat Lilith as the apple of their eye and take good care of her since she was a child. Although the family conditions are not very rich, they have never let Lilith feel wrong since she was a child, and they have tried their best to give her the best they can. No matter how spoiled Lilith is, they still spoil her. Just like this time, even though Lilith's attitude is very abnormal, they still comfort themselves. Maybe it's because Lilith is too tired for the first time to go to school. In the house, Lilith, who had no idea about the outside world, first locked the door, and then called her golden finger in her mind. System, check my current status. As soon as the voice fell, a virtual display screen suddenly appeared in front of her. A line of data appeared. Name, Lilith. Identity, freshman at Saint Laurent Magic Academy. Age, 16. Statistics, strength 6, agility 5, spirit 13, appearance 5. The average value for ordinary people is 10. Talent, none. Bloodline, none. Points, 12. Overall evaluation. As the host of the system, you are not even as good as ordinary people. You are simply vulnerable and have no merits. Looking at this line of data and the final evaluation, Lilith's eyes were a little depressed, but then she became arrogant again. So what if she is useless now? With the system, she will eventually rise. Ignoring the system's venomous evaluation, Lilith thought for a while, and then asked, System, with my current points, can I exchange for something? 10 points can be exchanged for some basic data. The cold voice of the system sounded in Lilith's mind. Can't you exchange for something special? Is there no novice gift package? Lilith asked unwillingly. No, please don't have these unrealistic fantasies. Earning points as soon as possible is the right way. The system's reply was very quick, with a hint of decisiveness. Knowing that there was no way, Lilith gave up the idea. After thinking for a while, she said, consume 10 points in exchange for 1 point of beauty. As soon as the voice fell, Lilith found that her original 12 points were rapidly reduced to only 2 points. And the 1 point of beauty exchange became 6, which was finally qualified. Seeing this scene, Lilith turned off the system, and then immediately came to the mirror and looked carefully. She still looked sallow, but her face had grown a little, looking more energetic and youthful. She was less depressed because of her poverty in the past. The so-called beauty bonus is not to change Lilith's appearance directly, but to make slight changes on her original basis, making her appearance softer and her facial features more harmonious. Adding the bonus of temperament, it gradually became better and better. And this is her golden finger. God-level strategy system. The next day, Lilith woke up and got up in some pain. Rebirth is good, but she has to get up early to go to school, which makes her very uncomfortable. She washed up simply, brushed her teeth, and made sure there was no bad breath, then nodded with satisfaction. Looking in the mirror, she found that after a night of fermentation, the added beauty made her face softer. Although it can't be said to be a world of difference compared to before, it is much better looking. At least, the bitter cold color in the past has faded. It really deserves to be a god-level strategy system. Although it only adds 1 point, it has brought me to this point to pass the passing line. If my beauty can be maxed out, how stunning will it be? She stroked her face narcissistically, imagining that in the future, her every frown and smile will make countless nobles fascinated. She couldn't help but laugh out loud with complacency. She packed up, took her books and went to school. Although her family lives in a small town under the Saint Laurent School of Magic, it is still a long way from the school. They need to leave early, otherwise they will be scolded by the teacher if they are late. Although Lilith believes that she is superior after her rebirth, she is still unwilling to encounter setbacks at the beginning. Anyway, there is still a long time in the future. Now that she has no strength, it is better to be honest. She walked all the way, entered the school on time, and found her class. At this time, the class has not started yet. The class is noisy and all the classmates are chatting. Some talk about gossip, some talk about magic, and some talk about jewelry and men. The content of the chat is very mixed. Lilith is very disdainful of these classmates. She walked into the class with her head held high and her spirits flying like a proud phoenix. She just added 1 point of beauty last night. She is looking forward to others seeing the changes on her face. Especially she hopes that Blair can see her changes. Unfortunately, no one around her noticed her. This made Lilith a little disappointed. But then she comforted herself in her heart, these classmates are blind. When passing by them, Lilith snorted arrogantly, then walked to her seat and sat down. After sitting down, she immediately looked at the front row, and placed her eyes on Blair. Lilith's eyes softened immediately. I don't know if you feel the same way. There is such a person in every class. You see, he doesn't study much, doesn't listen much in class, plays after class, does other things after holidays, and may not even do homework. But such a person is always the first in every exam. What's more annoying is that this person is not very sponsored, but he is handsome and has good skin. He doesn't mix with other classmates, but everyone likes him. You and him are in the same class, but you are as far away as the ends of the earth. One is in the sky, and the other is on the ground. Blair is such a person. It hasn't been 2 days since the college was divided into classes, and Blair's name as a top student has resounded throughout the grade. Along with his reputation as a top student, the entire college also had a favorable impression of Blair. Anyone who saw him could easily become familiar with him. Just like a natural friend. You want to be jealous of such a person, but you just can't be jealous no matter what. This is the man I like. Lilith looked at Blair, who was sitting in the front row and reading silently, and her hot eyes seemed to have never moved away. Blair couldn't help but frown in the front row. He felt that gaze lingering on him again. Even if Blair didn't use his eyes to contact, he could feel the hot gaze clearly. He moved his body uncomfortably, and a strong disgust arose in his heart. What's wrong with this woman? Why is the look in her eyes so weird, as if she wants to eat him alive? A little later, 2 trainee teachers came in and announced the content of today's tutor's lecture in advance, so that all students could preview it in advance. Half an hour later, Lin En walked in at the time of the class bell. Class. Lin En didn't say anything nonsense. After walking up to the podium, he got straight to the point and said, "Today, we will continue to talk about the basic theory and application of constructing magic star tracks." Open the 17th page of the relevant book. The whole classroom suddenly became quiet. There was only the sound of pages turning. Lin En picked up the staff and wrote the title of today's lecture on the magic stone wall. He turned around and said, "I looked at the homework assigned at the end of yesterday's class. Most of them were done very well, but the homework of some students was very sloppy. From today on, any homework I assign must be written carefully, with detailed data and various specifications. Otherwise, no matter whether the handwriting is sloppy or the data is false, it will not be allowed to pass. In addition, I would like to say that the completion of all homework will be recorded on the individual's year-end transcript. If the transcripts for 2 years are unqualified, the college will not graduate, and it is very likely that the student status will be revoked and the college will be expelled. I hope everyone will take this as a lesson." When saying this, Lin En inadvertently glanced at Lilith. The other students all held their heads high and answered in unison. Only Lilith was like a deflated ball, her original high-handed attitude suddenly deflated. Although Lin En said this to the whole class, it was actually directed at her alone. After all, she was the only one in the class of 50 who wrote her homework very sloppily. But she had not learned magic knowledge for more than 20 years, and many basic theories of magic had been completely forgotten. How could she keep up with the progress? If she relearned, it would be too difficult. After all, magic knowledge is very vast, and many of them need to be memorized by rote, and a considerable part of the homework needs to be experimented by yourself. For example, to cast a fireball, you need to record all the processes of the entire fireball, including the preconditions, the fluctuations of the magic elements during the casting, the speed and nodes of the magic flow in the body, and so on. This takes a lot of time and effort. How can Lilith have the patience? So annoying. Why is Lin En so serious? Doesn't he know that these homeworks are really tedious? And the homeworks of all 50 students in the class seem to take a lot of time. He doesn't know that one less homework can save him some time. It's his profit. Really, a grown man is still fussy about me, a weak woman. He doesn't have the bearing of a nobleman at all. Lilith complained in her heart. Lin N's class is still going on. It's just the boring theoretical basis of magic knowledge, but when Lin N tells it, it's like a stream flowing. With a certain unique charm, all the students can't help but immerse themselves in it, and can't extricate themselves for a while. Of course, there is one person left out here. Lilith. She still thinks that she can't listen to it. She feels that she can't keep up with such a course, so she simply doesn't listen. Anyway, I have a system. At worst, I can just add some points. Sooner or later, I can achieve the Saint Realm or even the God of Magic. What if I don't listen to the class? It's just some basic magic knowledge. When my magic skills are improved, I will understand it at once. She felt that magic knowledge was useless from the bottom of her heart, so she told herself so. However, sitting in the class and feeling out of place was a bit boring, so Lilith, who was bored, had to call out the system and planned to take this opportunity to fiddle with what functions her system had. Now she only has 2 points, and she can't even exchange a little attribute. Lilith was thinking about how to get points as quickly as possible so that her attributes can be added. Her system, other students can't see it. But Lin N, as the master of the system, has the core in his body, and he has taken back 2 fragments, so he can naturally detect the system fragments in Lilith's body. Not only can he detect it, as the highest authority in the system, he can even see the 3-dimensional floating screen in front of Lilith. Looking at this lucky person who is blessed by God, he is immersed in it at this moment, which makes Lin N shake his head. There is no such thing as 100 gains in the sky. Anyone who gets something will lose something accordingly. The more you get, the more you lose. Lilith has a system, and it seems that she has gained a lot and can get it without any effort, but it is precisely this point that limits Lilith's growth potential. More importantly, what she has is just a piece of system fragment. If it is complete, there may be no hidden dangers. But why do you think that a system fragment will keep paying in vain without thinking about the gains? It's just that the time has not come yet. The more Lilith gets from the system now, the more she will lose in the future. But Lin N ignored these. For the system on Lilith, Lin N will not do anything for the time being, it is not the right time yet. He can feel that this system fragment is somewhat special. It is better to let Lilith be a tool to explore the way for him first, and then pick the fruit when the time is right. With this thought in mind, Lin N glanced at Lilith, who was immersed in her own world, and then stopped paying attention and continued to teach. Time flowed slowly, and 3 months had passed in the blink of an eye. During these 3 months, nothing major happened on the Holy Continent. But the Saint Laurent Magic Academy was as lively as ever. The first one was Hansen, who made a big splash in last year's assessment. Although his system was taken away, his physique was still transformed by the system, and his talent became better. In these months of precipitation, he soon attracted the attention of many college instructors. After discussion among the instructors, it was decided to promote Lin N to the advanced class of the academy to receive top-notch training resources. When this news spread, the entire academy was shocked. The top nobles and high-level magicians in the Holy Continent all know that the Saint Laurent School of Magic has an advanced class. Those who can enter it are all top talents in the magic world. There is a great possibility that they will step into the Holy Land in the future. And now that Hansen has entered the advanced class, doesn't this mean that his future is favored by all the mentors and that they think he is likely to step into the Holy Land? It caused a great sensation in the academy for a while. I don't know how many people envy him privately. This also made Hansen's limelight in the academy unmatched for a while. The second is a woman named Rosa in the academy. She was originally just a magician with low talent and was mediocre when she entered school. But somehow, she was very lucky. She often got some treasures when she went out for adventures. She even went out to participate in an auction between magicians last month and bought a mysterious egg. After hatching, it turned out to be a griffin. This also caused a great sensation in the academy. The griffin is a legendary species, extremely precious, even more precious than a dragon. It is said that when it grows up, it can reach the level of a 9-star magician or knight. If you are lucky and feed it with natural treasures, you may be able to enter the level comparable to the Holy Realm. And such a legendary species was hatched by Rosa. What does this mean? It means that Rosa, a little girl, has just arrived at the academy and has a magical beast that will be comparable to the Holy Realm in the future. The future achievements will definitely not be low. You know, even in the Saint Laurent School of Magic, it is impossible to guarantee that you will definitely step into the 9 stars in the future. These students, it would be a lie to say that they are not envious. For a time, Rosa was also very popular in the academy, catching up with Hansen, who had just entered the advanced class. In addition, the iceberg goddess in the academy, Blake Adeline, is also becoming more and more popular. Although her temperament is cold, because of her stunning appearance, most boys and even some teachers in the academy are attracted to her. If that were the case, she wouldn't be so popular. The point is that this iceberg goddess not only has an outstanding appearance, but also has superb magic skills. At the age of 17, she has become a 5-star magician. Her magic talent is an extremely rare variant magic talent. She has a high affinity with the water attribute magic element, and it also has a variant ice attribute, which is also high. She has a high magic talent with both water and ice attributes, which is rare in a century. Of course, this excludes Lin En. It is said that because of her talent, many mentors in the academy are very fond of her. But this iceberg goddess has never chosen her own mentor. And not long ago, a celestial wizard who had just come out of seclusion in the academy came out of seclusion and revealed the idea of accepting disciples. This iceberg goddess did not hesitate to worship this female saint mage who entered the 3rd stage of the holy domain. In addition to these 3 who are very popular in the academy, there is also a student from a commoner family who has gradually come into the public eye from the margins among the freshmen. This person is Lilith. During these 3 months, although she didn't like studying, she was very enthusiastic about socializing. She often participated in class activities, organized activities and social gatherings, and tried hard to perform in front of the teacher to gain everyone's favor. Lilith's efforts were not in vain. As her personality became more and more cheerful, she gained more and more favor. And until this time, everyone discovered that Lilith's appearance was getting better day by day. It was as if she was still immature, but now she has reached the stage of maturity, showing her original posture. The previous sallowness gradually became rosy, and her thin and short body due to malnutrition gradually became taller and plump. Her face was rosy and shiny, and her skin was delicate and crystal clear. Her appearance became higher and higher, and her personality became better and better. During this period of time, more and more boys noticed this girl who had just grown up. Some boys are still paying attention, while some have already started. Lilith can even receive bold confessions and farewell letters from boys. Every morning when she comes to class, she can see several beautiful letters hidden in the desk and the gifts she carefully selected. Such changes make Lilith more contented. However, although she was happy in her heart, she still did not show it on her face. Instead, she became more humble and showed her smile undisguisedly no matter what she faced. She made a group of boys fascinated by her. But unfortunately, this did not include Blair. Even after Lilith's transformation, she had been intentionally or unintentionally hanging around in front of Blair, but the latter never showed any intention of being attracted to her. This made Lilith a little bit of a blow. But she was only slightly discouraged and quickly cheered up. She was completely convinced by the God-level strategy system. She put her magic studies on hold again and concentrated on collecting points. Anyway, she had the system. When she needed it, she could directly exchange a related skill to ensure that her learning progress would not be left too far behind. Now she was full of confidence. She even changed her mentality. She no longer hid herself as usual when Lin En selected people to answer questions. Instead, she held her head high and hoped that Lin En would choose her to answer questions. She even hoped to charm Lin En. After all, Lin En was the prince of the empire, the disciple of the god of law, and he had become a saint. His future was much brighter than Blair's. But unfortunately, Lin En didn't show any favor to her. Not only did Lin En never ask Lilith to answer questions again, but she also showed no mercy to Lilith's intentional or unintentional charms in front of her. In public, Lin En frankly asked Lilith to concentrate on her studies and not to put all her energy on being flashy. This once again made Lilith lose face in public. After this incident, Lilith, who had been in trouble, had to give up. However, after just a few days of being quiet, the unwilling Lilith became active again. However, this time she set her target on Blair. Every day she changed her way to hang around in front of Blair. This made Blair very painful. If Lilith just wanted to make friends normally, it would be fine, and Blair would not be unwilling, but it was just that Lilith was either not smart or had some kind of problem. She acted like he had a crush on her and she was reluctant to accept it, and acted like he liked her but was taking advantage of her. My God, is this Lilith possessed by a drama queen? God of light, God of law, do I like her at all? If I really had this idea, I would rather a thunderbolt from the sky struck me to death. Blair was in great pain and often wailed in his heart because of being harassed. But he couldn't scold Lilith. After all, this was Lilith's freedom. But the key point was, with such a person by his side, how could he study with peace of mind? Let alone Lilith, the crazy bees and butterflies she attracted made it difficult for Blair to concentrate. Not to mention that Blair was doing a research with Professor Lin En recently. As an avid follower of Lin En, being able to work with his idol is an opportunity Blair has been dreaming of. He cherishes it very much and hopes to do the things that His Highness Lin En has entrusted to him perfectly. Therefore, he needs to be fully focused. No, I can't go on like this. In order to better follow His Highness, I have to put aside all distractions and concentrate on doing things. Secretly cheering himself up in his heart, Blair cheered up again, sorted out his mood, and continued to work. Recently, Lin En has been studying magic skills in addition to class. After becoming a sanctuary, Lin En found that many of the magics of Meteor now have defects. According to Lin En's previous temperament, he was unwilling to manage it. But Vino specifically called him to the office and talked earnestly, hoping that Lin En could take on the responsibilities of the Tieni Mage and study magic in his spare time. At first, Lin En refused. But Vino was so old and made a sincere request, and he was still his teacher, so he couldn't save face, so Lin En could only reluctantly agree. But with his lazy temperament, how could he do this himself? Of course, after he finished the practice, he recorded the data and then found a tool person to help him. So Blair, a hard-working guy who was diligent and hard-working, came into his sight. Lin En just wanted to find a coolie, but Blair was ecstatic when he got this job, thinking that he could finally do something insignificant for His Highness Lin En. So since he started working, he was full of energy every day and dared not slack off. At this time, Blair started to work. He had already finished the task assigned to him by His Highness Lin En and could complete it today. He worked from after class until late at night and finally completed all the data. Blair couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Finally finished. I hope His Highness will be satisfied when he sees it tomorrow. He murmured to himself, but thinking that His Highness would check the results tomorrow, although he had read the article several times, he was still a little nervous. And just as he was nervous, footsteps suddenly sounded in the room. Blair's body tensed up immediately, and he turned his head subconsciously, and suddenly saw Lin En walking slowly towards him. Your Highness. Blair saluted respectfully. Get up. Lin En nodded slightly, and then said, have you finished writing the article? It's finished, please check it, Your Highness. Lin En did not comment, and picked up the article to read it. Blair stood there nervously, looking at a loss, like a primary school student waiting for a teacher to reprimand him. Not bad, you can see that you did it very seriously. After a while, Lin En, who had read the entire article, put it down and said softly. After receiving this evaluation, Blair immediately gave up his whole body and showed a smile on his face. Although it was just a good word and a serious word. But for Blair, it was more important than anyone's praise and compliments. He did not disappoint His Highness. All the efforts in these days have not been in vain. I am very satisfied with your seriousness, Blair. In addition to this job, are you willing to be my deputy in the future and complete the work with me? Holding the article, Lin En wanted to encourage him and then put it away. But thinking that Vino might let him continue to study magic in the future, he thought about making Blair his full-time deputy. Blair is talented enough, and hardworking enough, so his efficiency also satisfies Lin En. Lin En likes to communicate with smart people, and there is no reason why Blair is absolutely qualified in all aspects. He is the best candidate to be his tool. Blair didn't know what Lin En was thinking. After hearing this, his first reaction was disbelief. But then he immediately came back to his senses and said repeatedly, "Yes, yes, I am willing." Blair is willing to be loyal to His Highness. At this moment, Blair suddenly thought of his father. Duke Resner once told him that there is no cheese and bread falling from the sky for nothing. But at this moment, Blair wanted to say to his father, "There is indeed no cheese and bread falling from the sky, but there are things that are more precious than that." Yes, for Blair at this moment, this is simply a surprise falling from the sky. And it hit him right on the head. It knocked him out instantly. Blair was completely immersed in a huge happiness. Even if Lin En left, he didn't notice it. He just stood there, smiling foolishly. Your Highness, this is the Majesty of the Empire, a letter from your father." Back in his own castle, Lin En was just about to relax when Albert came over, holding a beautiful and gorgeous letter in both hands, and said respectfully. Lin En took the envelope and found that there was a seal of the Saint Laurent Empire on the envelope. He did not open the letter immediately to check it, but walked into the garden and put it on the table. He sat in a rocking chair, basking in the sun and looking at the flowers comfortably. Shaolin, one of the 4 maids, immediately brought a glass of water. His Highness doesn't like tea, but only likes to take sweet water. Everyone knows this habit. Therefore, when His Highness travels, these 4 personal maids will carry nectar collected from the Wanhua forest with them. This nectar is brewed by a group of extremely precious exotic bees. Although these bees are not strong individually, they are in groups, so even the 9-star great magician is difficult to deal with. But because of Lin En's preference, the Imperial family specially enclosed a large area in the Wanhua forest and sent a branch of the Empire to garrison here, specifically to satisfy Lin En's appetite. In fact, in addition to the sweet honey water, Lin En's food, clothing, housing and transportation are all top-notch on the continent. The incense in the room is the dragon's ambergris, a treasure that the strong men in the sanctuary will treat with caution, but it can only be a kind of incense here. Just to make Lin En sleep more peacefully. The clothes he wore were made by the best elves in the elf forest, tailor-made to ensure comfort and fit. The cups and teapots he used were also specially made by the goblin craftsmen, low-key and luxurious. The food is exquisite and the food is delicate. The Holy Empire, with the powerful strength of the entire empire, found all the luxury on this continent for Lin En. At this moment, Lin En took a sip of the cup, feeling the rich fragrance in his mouth, and his mood became cheerful. Picked up the envelope on the table and opened it. "Read it carefully. My dear child, I am your best father. I don't know if you miss me after not seeing you for such a long time. Well, I know that you will definitely not miss me because I know you. When you were at home, you often read books in the royal library. Unless I call you, you will not take the initiative to find us. But I miss you very much. Ever since you left my wings and went to Saint Laurent alone, I have been worried about you. I am worried that you are not doing well and worry about your life. I also said at the beginning that Saint Laurent is too remote and a rural place. Logically, you should not go there. Although this is the intention of the God of Law, I think that even the God of Law should not let you suffer such hardships." The letter is very long and the writing is also nagging. But it contains a father's longing for a child. Speaking of Lin En's parents, Lin En couldn't help showing a strange look on his face. His parents are actually like a pair of protagonists of destiny. In his father's generation, there were originally 3 brothers. As the youngest brother, my father was not supposed to inherit the Holy Empire, but on the day he came of age, he met a woman in the empire. The woman was very mysterious and met my father by chance in a Bohemia garden. The woman only flashed by, but it was this glimpse that made my father fall in love at first sight. After the woman left, a handkerchief was blown by the wind, which belonged to the woman. My father was so fascinated by the handkerchief that he lost his appetite from then on. Later, they met several more times by chance. My father's longing for the woman became stronger and stronger, and the feelings between them became stronger and stronger. In the end, they finally couldn't contain their inner feelings, they confessed their feelings to each other, and promised to be together for life. My father planned to confess to his father, hoping to get a blessing, but the then Imperial Majesty, my father's father, disagreed, just because the woman was just a commoner, and her identity was very mysterious. How could such a woman enter the royal door? They didn't give up even though they didn't get the desired result, and continued to work hard for it. The following plot is familiar to everyone, such as mysteriously breaking up the couple, agreeing to elope, etc. There are also some palace fights and succession struggles in the middle. But it is worth mentioning that in the end, the two brothers of the father got really angry and they broke out a palace coup, and the eldest and second brothers died. This is bad. There is only one person left to inherit the Holy Empire. That is the third son, who is the most ignorant and only knows how to fall in love. That is Lin En's father. There is no way. In order for Lin En's father to be able to go smoothly, the then emperor of the empire could only pinch his nose and agree to his father's request and marry that woman. After marriage, they lived happily together. After the death of the emperor, Lin En's father successfully succeeded to the throne and became the emperor of the empire. I don't know whether this woman is talented or Lin En's father has been hiding his talents. Since becoming the emperor of the empire, Lin En's father has vigorously developed reforms, making the empire strong quickly. During the time when Lin En was not yet born, the Holy Empire successively annexed the other two empires that had been deadlocked for hundreds of years, becoming the only empire on this continent. Then, Lin En was born. Chapter 51. What a bloody story. Thinking back to the story of the previous generation, Lin En couldn't help but sigh. His mother was very mysterious. She disappeared mysteriously after giving birth to her. More than 10 years have passed. Although His Majesty has been looking for her, he has never found any clues. It's like she evaporated out of thin air. From Lin En's point of view, his mother is definitely a time traveler. After all, Lin En knows very well what kind of person his father is. It can't be said that he is a tyrant, but he is definitely not a wise ruler. But the reforms carried out by his father after taking office are obviously not something he can do, and many of them are epic-making. It is obvious that this is definitely the work of his mysterious mother. As for her disappearance, Lin En also speculated. There are only two possibilities. First, she may have triggered or completed some specific conditions after traveling through time, and then returned to reality. Second, she did not complete a certain task of the system and was wiped out by the system. There are only these two possibilities. In addition to the first half of the letter written by his father, which is about expressing his thoughts, the second half gets to the point. He met another woman he liked. In the back garden of the royal family, he met a woman by chance. She was straightforward and cheerful, like a sunflower in the sun, bright and energetic. After your mother left, my heart was dead silent for 17 years, but when I met her, I seemed to be resurrected again. You don't know what kind of woman she is. She knows all my preferences. We are simply a perfect match. These are the original words of his father in the letter. After seeing this description, Lin En didn't even have to guess, and he could be sure in one word, there was definitely something wrong with this woman. This woman was just a maid who bumped into her father in the garden, but she didn't know her father's identity. She naively thought that her father was just a knight, and played games with her father instead. Did she really not know, or was she pretending not to know? This garden was a royal garden. Except for the royal family, no one else could enter. Even the guarding knights could only be stationed outside the garden. And his father was wandering in the garden. He had such power, and at least he was involved with the royal family. This woman is a maid in the palace, but she doesn't know her father's identity. Is she really stupid or just pretending to be stupid? Lin En can conclude that this woman is either a time traveler or a reborn person. Maybe she has some kind of strategy system. In addition, maybe this woman is surrounded by some powerful and lonely knights, noble and untainted magicians, and druid masters in the palace. These people are originally lonely and difficult to get along with, but they are all moved by the maid's tenacity and innocence. From then on, he paid more attention to this maid and also had more admiration. It's really an old routine. Lin En shook his head. The reason why his father told him about this in the letter was to ask Lin En's opinion. Although his father is the emperor of the empire and his words are final in the entire Holy Empire, he is not an arrogant and foolish monarch after all. Instead, his family knows his own affairs. His father knew very well that he didn't have much talent in governing the country. When the other two empires were annexed, it was his mother who made the plan behind the scenes. After Lin En was born, it was Lin En who secretly instructed and reformed the empire, sweeping away the corruption that had already accumulated. In other words, the current empire's governance policy is completely in accordance with Lin En's ideas. If he wants to sit firmly on his throne, he must not care about the opinion of his youngest son. Now, he wants to marry a stepmother for Lin En. He can ignore the opinions of other princes, but he must not ignore the opinions of his youngest son. If Lin En disagrees, it will be much more difficult for him to bring this maid into the palace. Lin En can even imagine that during the time when the letter was delivered, his father must be eagerly waiting for his reply every day. In fact, Lin En is too lazy to care about such things. After thinking about it, Lin En picked up the pen and started writing on a new piece of letter paper. The content of the reply was very simple, with only 4 words. Read, as you wish. After replying, Lin En stamped his seal and called Albert to hand the letter to the messenger. After doing all this, Lin En lay back on the chair quite comfortably. After a while, he seemed to think of something, and a smile suddenly appeared on his face. He thought of a possibility. According to the normal plot, he would certainly stop his father from marrying this woman into the royal family, but in this way, he would fall into the trap of God's will. After all, according to the general routine, if he stopped them and broke up the couple, his father might have to play a life of separation and death with the maid in private. During this period, there might be some old-fashioned plots such as you misunderstood me and I misunderstood you, and love and hate. In addition, those lonely knights, noble magicians, druid masters, etc. who were moved by the innocent and sunny maid would also come out in person. Who knows how big a mess they would make. When everything was out of control, he had to return to the capital from the academy to deal with the matter. Then, by some strange coincidence, he met this maid by chance on the way or after returning to Beijing. Maybe they didn't know each other, or maybe it was fate. This maid left some traces in Lin En's heart. As time went by, Lin En missed this maid more and more. Then when Lin En dealt with this matter, he was shocked to find that this maid was the one who loved and killed his father. He would definitely be incredulous, unbelievable, and difficult to accept. A better one might suppress his thoughts and fulfill the maid. But if it was more vulgar, it might be because of this woman that their fathers turned against each other, and finally the two met in battle, and civil strife broke out in the Holy Empire. After a fight, the world was in chaos, heroes divided, and the Holy Empire was gone. Finally, a true son of heaven who rose from the grassroots raised his arms and called for the world to respond, recovering all the way, and finally hit the capital, killing Lin En's father and both. Afterwards, this true son of heaven sat on the holy continent and built a huge empire. And beside him, unknowingly, there was a naive, bright, and innocent little maid. After several years, when people read about this past in history books, perhaps they would only sigh. The once powerful empire fell apart because of a woman. It was really a disaster caused by a beautiful woman. Such a plot as a perfect female frequency routine. But now, Lin En did the opposite. He let his father do what he wanted, and he pulled himself out of this vortex and watched the storm. He wanted to see what kind of storm this woman could stir up. Let's wait and see. Regardless of the disturbances in the outside world, I will remain unmoved. Lin En knew that although the continent was peaceful now and his life was also very peaceful, this was the result of careful choices and avoiding many risks. If one did not make a good choice, he would easily fall into the vortex. Not to mention the distant ones. In the academy, there was Ron who was killed by him before. There were also Hansen who was still jumping around, the iceberg goddess Adeline, the lucky reborn girl Rosa, Lilith who had just enrolled, and even the woman in the distant Imperial capital. Among these people, which one was a simple character? If Lin En had not withdrawn decisively, he would have become the final big boss in the world of these people, and the only end would be to be slapped in the face by these so-called destiny protagonists. Then he would be their stepping stone and be stepped on by them to ascend to a high position. But now, as the master of the system, Lin En sat on the cloud and watched them quarrel. When the time is right, he will act decisively and reap the benefits of the left hand. These so-called protagonists and lucky ones now seem to be like fish in water, calling the wind and rain, but in fact, they are just Lin En's tools. As long as he wants, he can deprive them of their systems at any time. But now, the play has not been played to the extreme, and the time is still early. Just wait and see. Of course, the reason why he didn't do it now is mainly because Lin En wants to continue watching the show. Apart from anything else, just another worker under him, Blair, has made Lin En laugh for a long time. Watching Blair being entangled every day is one of his few pleasures. Under such circumstances, more than a year has passed quickly. It has been exactly 2 years since Lin En came to Saint Laurent Magic Academy. And this season is just the day for Saint Laurent Magic Academy to recruit new students. It is worth mentioning that Hansen has completed his academic assessment and graduated successfully this year as a 6-star wizard. However, because he joined the advanced class, he did not leave the academy, but remained as a student of the academy. Unless students in the advanced class voluntarily drop out, the academy will not take the initiative to expel them. After all, they are the future of the continent and are expected to enter the sacred realm. In order to train them, Saint Laurent has devoted a lot of resources and efforts. The resources consumed are so many that even Saint Laurent Magic Academy cannot treat them easily. After Hansen, who graduated, achieved the realm of a 6-star wizard, he left the academy. At this level, what he needed was not the guidance of the mentors, but to increase his knowledge and experience. Therefore, he began his own adventure. During this period, rumors about Hansen spread to the academy one after another. Such as saving the princess of a kingdom, discovering a secret realm, killing a dragon with his classmates, fighting against the orcs, and killing a powerful monster comparable to a 7-star wizard. There are countless deeds. Hansen was portrayed as a savior. The companions who followed him on the adventure had no sense of existence. It was as if all these things were done by him alone. The latest rumor was that he broke through in the battle with a high-level dark wizard and successfully became a 7-star great magician. Such news came back, and many instructors in the academy were amazed at him. Many new students regarded him as an idol. And Lin En, in the past year or so, has been teaching and educating people. Under his guidance, the students in the academy have a great enthusiasm for magic knowledge courses. In the past year or so, the students' magic knowledge has been significantly improved. There is no doubt that the biggest credit for making such a change in a short period of time belongs to Lin En. After learning about this, Vino was very glad that he had made the decision at the beginning, thinking that it was very appropriate. Therefore, he took the credit on himself without blushing at all. Unfortunately, his shameless remarks were refuted mercilessly by Lin En, which made Vino smile awkwardly. The well-known and respected god of magic was majestic and serious outside, but no one knew that he had no dignity in front of his disciple. He even looked like a wretched old man. And Lin En, with Blair's help, improved many magics in this year. Either the casting speed was accelerated, or the power was strengthened, or the effect was amplified. Lin En even developed 2 new magics himself and proposed a new theory. This new theory was considered to have great feasibility under the unanimous research of many tutors in the academy, so Lin En was praised. The God of Heaven is indeed the God of Heaven, so different. Since Lin En came, our work has become much easier. Lin En is really a star in the magic world, and we should all look forward to his growth. Such praises are all around Lin En. Of course, for Lin En, these praises have been so many that his ears have become calloused, so he is naturally not surprised by the honor. However, after teaching for so many years, Lin En has become a little tired of it. He taught because it was originally arranged by Vino, and Lin En also wanted to experience it, so he agreed. But after teaching for more than a year, Lin En has had enough of the hidden life, and there is no point in teaching anymore. What's more, although these students are geniuses in the outside world, they are hopelessly stupid in front of Lin En. Only Blair and a few people in the advanced class can be slightly taken seriously by him. The rest are not worth mentioning. Teaching these stupid people makes Lin En very impatient. Of course, this is not the main reason. The most important thing is that since he came to this world, he has been immersed in the royal library of the palace for the first 16 years. Then he came to the Saint Laurent Magic Academy when he was 16 years old, until he was 18 years old. For 18 years, Lin En has been learning knowledge and practicing magic. He is a little tired of such a life. The world is big, Lin En really wants to go out and see. Do it when you think of it. So after a normal class ended, when the bell rang, Lin En did not leave as usual, but said expressionlessly, "From today on, I will no longer teach you magic knowledge courses." All the students were shocked when they heard the news. At first they didn't react, and it took a while before they understood. Lin En is leaving. Suddenly, everyone was furious. "Your Highness, do you mean you won't teach us anymore?" "Of course," Lin En said. "Why?" The classmates were very reluctant. "Because you are so stupid, I don't want to be a teacher anymore." After Lin En finished speaking, he turned around and left. At the original place, only a group of students were left in a mess in the classroom. Dean's office. Lin En met Dean Vino. 2 years have passed, and Dean Vino is still the same as when they first met, without any change. The only difference is that the beard on his chin has grown longer. As a god of magic living above the stars, he is very old. Even time cannot stay on him. And these 2 years, at best, are as short as the flick of a finger for ordinary people in the long years of the god of magic. "My teacher, greetings to you." Seeing Vino, Lin En bowed. "You are here." Looking at Lin En, Vino's face showed an undisguised smile of approval. He could feel that Lin En was surrounded by very active magic elements, which were pouring into his body all the time. His strength was also improving every moment. Since Lin En entered the Holy Land, in just a short time, he has reached the peak realm of the Domain Mage, and is only one step away from entering the realm of the Forbidden Spell Mage. Even Vino couldn't help showing a trace of envy in his heart when he saw such a talent. After taking a sip of tea and eliminating this thought, Vino smiled and said, "I already know your idea. As your mentor, I agree with your action. Now, your cultivation has reached the peak of the Domain Mage. Staying in the academy can no longer help you well. You need to go out of the academy, see the world, experience different customs and people, and see more mountains and rivers. Only in this way can you better understand the essence of magic. In this world, no one can enter the realm of the god of magic by retreating alone." Lin En has a wealth of magical knowledge. In terms of knowledge, although he is slightly inferior to Vino, he is undoubtedly much deeper than ordinary sanctuary mages. But this knowledge is not enough to support him to enter the realm of the god of magic. As Vino said, no one in this world can enter the realm of the god of magic by retreating alone. Lin En can't do it either. In the academy, Lin En has learned everything he can learn, and Vino, as the god of magic, can't help him more. After all, at the level of the Holy Land, everyone has their own understanding. This point, both Lin En and Vino are very clear. "I'm glad that you can understand me so well." Hearing this, Lin En was not surprised at all, but nodded and said, "So this time I came here to say goodbye to you. I plan to travel around the continent." This is a good thing. Vino had expected it, and was not surprised at Lin En's words. But knowing it is knowing it, when it really came to the moment of farewell, Vino was still a little reluctant. But he knew that he couldn't stop it. The young eagle could not always be under the protection of the old eagle. If you want the young eagle to fly higher and farther, you can only let the young eagle spread its wings boldly. And Lin En is undoubtedly the strongest among the young eagles. His future will fly higher and farther. He has a broader sky. Thinking of this, Vino stretched out his hand and said, "Give me your staff." Lin En took out the staff that Vino had given him from the storage ring and handed it over. "I will help you to re-sacrifice this staff so that it will be more compatible with you. Come and get it in 3 days. Also, after you decide to leave, don't come to say goodbye to me. I'm a little reluctant. But remember, your teacher is waiting for you in Saint Laurent, waiting for you to come back after training." After saying that, Vino waved his hand, signaling Lin En to leave. And he turned his back and disappeared in an instant. 3 days later, Lin En came to the office to get the staff, but did not see Vino. He only saw a staff and a storage ring on the table. The staff was still in the form of a branch, black in color, and full of vitality. But compared with before, there was a dazzling crystal-like gem on the top of the staff, which contained a powerful aura. Laws like chains flowed in the crystal. This was the law of order. It was the power of the forbidden spell sealed in it by the god of law. In addition, the whole staff was engraved with a series of precise magic arrays, and the magic patterns were engraved on it, which looked mysterious and simple. Obviously, in order to protect Lin En's safety, Vino specially re-practiced this staff and sealed his own power of the god of law in it, so that Lin En could save his life when he encountered danger. More importantly, Vino also connected this staff with Lin En's aura. This is equivalent to giving this staff to Lin En completely, so that Lin En can use it more easily and with greater power. In another storage ring, Lin En saw countless gems and gold coins, as well as many precious magic potions and precious herbs. There are also some precious magic materials and weapons inlaid with magic arrays. These are all prepared by Vino for his trip. Do everything possible to protect Lin En's safety. Looking at these, Lin En's eyes moved slightly. Although he knew that there was no one here, Lin En still bowed very sincerely and said, "Thank you, my teacher." Then he stood up and left the office. I don't know how long it took, but a magical light suddenly appeared in the silent and deserted office. Vino's figure walked out of it. He looked at the closed office door and was speechless for a while. Only his red eyes showed his inner restlessness. The next morning, Lin En left the academy alone. He didn't say goodbye to anyone. Albert wanted to follow, but was stopped by Lin En. When Lin En left, the strong auras hovering in the academy were a little sad. Although they knew that Lin En was just going out to gain experience and would be back soon. But during the 2 years that Lin En was in the academy, all the instructors had already liked this cold-natured prince. How could they be reluctant to part now? It took a long time for these strong auras to dissipate one by one. In the dean's office, Vino stood by the bed, holding a teacup in his hand, looking at the direction where Lin En left, with a calm look and a hint of reluctance. In addition, more is looking forward to it. After leaving the academy, Lin En found a direction and followed it all the way. He did not look for a destination specifically, but wherever he went was where he went. Everything was guided by his heart. Along the way, he saw a lot of things. They were all recorded in books, but Lin En had never really seen them. Short goblins, vulgar dog-headed people, ugly goblins. In addition, he encountered some robberies and ambushes. Because Lin En did not wear the academy's clothes, but only wore gorgeous robes, and his personality was indifferent, his appearance was extraordinary, and he did not care about the consumption of money along the way, so he was targeted by many people with bad intentions. There were thieves, adventure groups, wanted bandits by the Empire, and even dark wizards who coveted his appearance. But these people, without exception, were defeated. Under the powerful magic power of Lin En, they had no chance of resistance at all and were buried directly. Walking and stopping along the way, finally, Lin En stopped in an unknown town. Along the way, Lin En actually encountered different towns, some of which were very welcoming to outsiders, while others were very closed. But almost all towns have churches. This is the Church of the God of Light. Just like the orcs living on this continent, they believe in the god of beasts. The elves living in the elf forest believe in the goddess of life just like the tree people. The dragons living in the overseas dragon nest believe in the ancestor dragon. All races have their own beliefs. And the human race, most of them believe in the god of light. But it is just a belief. Since the emergence of magic, humans can become the gods of law walking in the world through cultivation, and the power of the gods has been greatly restricted. Even if it can be transmitted to the lower world, it is only a small part. This is not enough to change the overall situation. The church also needs to practice. In the past, because the church had faith in very orthodox cultivation methods, and the three kingdoms on the continent were in a tripartite balance, and the church was stronger than the three kingdoms, the power of the church was greatly developed, and once reached the point of divine right of kings. But as the Holy Empire unified the continent, the empire's strength has developed rapidly, and the church has been greatly restricted. Although the church's light magic is very good and the Pope's own strength is also very strong, the church is still firmly controlled by the empire. After Lin En was born, because of his actions, he constantly attacked the church, which eventually made the church isolated and moved its headquarters from the center of the continent to the remote south. Yes, this move was secretly promoted by Lin En. But so far, the church does not know. Instead, it vigorously spreads and regards Lin En as the Son of God. I don't know if the church will be so angry that it will spit blood after learning the truth. Thinking of this, Lin En couldn't help but smile. And it was this smile that made the whole tavern seem to brighten up in an instant. Many adventure groups and mercenaries who were originally noisy fell silent at this moment. They were dumbfounded and stunned for a while. And the women sitting in the tavern blushed in an instant, with bright light in their eyes. Looking at Lin En, there was only admiration and love. Lin En felt the change in the tavern, restrained his smile, and looked around. Wherever his eyes passed, no one dared to look at him and lowered their heads. They were all shocked by the indifference in Lin En's eyes. But then, they came back to their senses. When they looked at Lin En again, they found that he had no strength except for his cold temperament. Now they relaxed. It turned out to be just a good-looking rich young man. Everyone in the tavern resumed their chattering. And Lin En was still drinking sake. However, at this moment, a tall and handsome woman came over carrying a huge sword that was completely inconsistent with her figure. She came to Lin En and said with a smile, "Sir, I wonder if you are here to find the trace of the dragon. If possible, I hope to invite you to join my adventure team. Although our adventure team is not the top, we have been hanging around here and are familiar with every inch of land here. If you can come, we can look for the dragon together. If we can kill the dragon, we can share the spoils." Hearing this, Lin En looked at the woman with interest. "Dragon?" He shook his head. "I don't like joining the mercenary team." His voice was very light, but it was full of unquestionable. Most people like to travel together when traveling to different regions, such as adventure teams or mercenary groups. But Lin En doesn't like it. And with his strength, he doesn't need it. The woman heard the meaning of Lin En's words, and did not persuade him. She could only shake her head regretfully. "Well, it's a pity, but if you change your mind, you can find me. I am the captain of the Vanguard mercenary team. If you want to find me, you can ask anyone in the town. They all know my location." After that, the woman said goodbye and left. Lin En looked at the direction where the woman left with interest, with a meaningful expression on his face. The reason why he stopped in this town this time was not because there were so many knights in the town suddenly, nor because of the rumor that there was a dragon here. A mere dragon is not worth Lin En's attention. With his status, if he is willing, the Empire will personally catch a few dragons for Lin En to watch. And with Lin En's strength, even if it is a dragon comparable to the sanctuary level after adulthood, he can't get any benefits from him. There are two reasons why he stopped here. The first is this woman. The moment he saw this woman, he smelled a familiar smell from her. It was the same smell as Ron, Hansen, and Rosa. The second reason was that he met a familiar person in this town. Hansen. After graduating from the academy, Hansen has been traveling on the mainland. And this time, perhaps because of the news of the dragon here, Hansen hurried over and wanted to kill the dragon himself. After a year, Lin En met Hansen again, but found that the remnant soul on the other party had become stronger and stronger. Perhaps, the time for them to meet in battle is not far away. Because of this, Lin En stopped. For this interesting plot, he has been waiting for a long time. How can he miss it? Just close the net here. In Lin En's sight, he could see a figure walking on the street not far away. He had golden hair, handsome looks, and a curve at the corner of his mouth, which made him look evil. But with his handsome appearance, he was even more attractive. On the street, many women were secretly looking at him. And more men were looking at the beautiful women around him. Their eyes revealed undisguised covetousness. However, because of the strong aura emanating from him, these men did not dare to act rashly. This person was naturally Hansen. During the time he traveled on the road, he walked on the edge of life and death many times, which made Hansen more mature and more charming. And these women around him were all partners he met by chance during his travels. Yes, in the eyes of outsiders, they were all partners. But in Hansen's eyes, these women were just members of his harem. After all, everyone had been tasted by him. However, what made Hansen feel a little bit disappointed was that he was not very good, and these women were not his first time. This made Hansen a little disappointed. But this did not hinder his lust. In his heart, these women were not his good matches anyway, they were just for fun now. This time, he was traveling on the mainland and accidentally heard that there were dragons here. The greed in his heart made him rush here as soon as possible. After coming here, he found that this small town had gathered many adventure groups and mercenaries, but he didn't care. With his realm of a 7-star grade magician, in such a small town, he is definitely a high-end combat force. He is very confident in himself. After Hansen and his companions bought some food and supplies on the street, they went out of the town. At the same time, in the tavern, seeing Hansen leave, Lin En retracted his gaze. He left a mark on Hansen's body. As long as Hansen was still near him, he could sense the other party's position. Therefore, he was not in a hurry. After paying the bill and walking out of the tavern, Lin En glanced in a certain direction vaguely, and then walked towards the inn in the town. He planned to stay in the town. And just as Lin En left, 7 or 8 big men walked out of the tavern. They were all strong, with scars on their faces or bodies, and looked very ferocious. This was a group of mercenaries who were very famous in the local area, called the Wild Wolf Mercenary Group. They came here because they heard that there was a giant dragon here and planned to split up. However, before they were ready to look for the giant dragon, they found another prey. A rich boy who was very generous but had no cultivation at all. Yes, they set their sights on Lin En. Lin En had been targeted by them when he just entered the town. When they saw that Lin En's casual moves were in gold coins, they had already had desires in their hearts. More importantly, Lin En's appearance was too outstanding. Although he was a man, there were many nobles in this world who liked men. If they could tie up Lin En, collect his money first, and then sell him to the nobles, they would definitely make a fortune. With this thought in mind, they followed Lin En. Opposite the tavern, inside the house. Looking at Lin En in front and 7 or 8 scarred men behind, the group of people withdrew their gazes. A sturdy man in the lead said to a tall woman sitting in the house, "Joanna, why did you invite that guy? He looks so fragile. It's just a chore to be in our team. What's more, he has been targeted by the Wild Wolf Mercenary Group, and there is no way to survive." The woman who had previously invited Lin En to join the adventure team said calmly, "Henry, I told you not to underestimate anyone. He looks like a weak noble boy, but think about it carefully. This town is surrounded by deep forests and powerful monsters. He can cross the forest alone and come here without any injuries, and even looks so elegant and calm. I smell the breath of danger on him. This is enough to show that he is not as simple as he looks on the surface." The woman named Joanna stood up and looked at Lin En. En and the Wild Wolf Mercenary Group left in front and behind, exuding an astonishing murderous aura, and said coldly, "Besides, I have a hunch. Once we take a risk on him, we may die. If I'm right, he may be a noble magician." No one knows. When she said it to the end, especially when the word magician appeared, she was a little confused and envious. Magician. This shouldn't be possible. How could a noble magician come to such a remote town? The big men in the room subconsciously shook their heads to deny. "Of course, this is just my guess," Joanna said, staring at the others, and said, "But I'll put it here, you must never take a risk on him. Even if it's just a possibility, if he is really a magician, we're done." At this point, Joanna's sharp eyes swept towards the few people. These people are obviously big men with strong bodies, and they all have a fierce aura, but at this time facing Joanna's the women looked around and were frightened to the point of lowering their heads like quails. "Got it, we will never disturb that lord." Seeing Joanna's serious expression, several big men said in unison. Joanna nodded and said, "I'm going back, you stay here well, and..." She hesitated for a moment and then said, "Send someone to keep an eye on the people of the Wild Wolf Mercenary Group. If they really want to do it, if that lord is a magician, report immediately. If not, forget it. After all, trash can't live here." After saying that, she left. And several big men were submissive and agreed quickly. After Joanna left completely, these people wiped the cold sweat from their foreheads and breathed a sigh of relief. The outside world actually didn't understand why the pioneer team, which had just been established not long ago and became famous, let a woman be the captain, and the members of the team were submissive to this woman. But only they knew. The reason why their adventure team was formed was because of Joanna's matchmaking. Everyone in the team was defeated and convinced by Joanna. Adventurers admire the strong, so they are willing to be led by Joanna. But the reason why they are so afraid is mainly because of Joanna's methods. You know, just a year ago, Joanna was sold to an old man in the town by her stepmother. This old man was a mercenary when he was young. Just because he broke a leg, he had to stay away from fighting and return to the town to live. But his past as a mercenary did not make the old man develop a generous character, but made him very sarcastic. When he just came back to the town, some people thought that although he had a broken leg, he was still a powerful mercenary with a lot of savings. Therefore, many residents in the town wanted to marry their daughters to him, hoping to get a large inheritance after the mercenary died. But unexpectedly, this old man often beat and scolded his wife after drinking, and beat his wife to death. Later, no one was willing to marry their daughters to him. And now, Joanna was married to him, and many men in the town were still quite sorry that such a beautiful girl was going to be tortured by an old man and died. But no one expected that Joanna would change her previous timid character and escape from the old man's house on the day of the wedding. Then, she disappeared without a trace. 2 months later, Joanna walked out of the dense forest covered in blood. Not long after, her acrimonious stepmother disappeared without a trace, and her stepmother's son, who often bullied her brother, was also found dead in the dense forest. And the old mercenary with a broken leg hanged himself in his own home. All those who had bullied her died in various ways, but the people in the town did not find any evidence. And she was so active in the town. Over time, the people in the town saw her as if they were avoiding snakes and scorpions, and their hearts were full of panic. In the following days, Joanna has been active in the dense forest. Her skills are very terrible, and even the most powerful knight in the town is not her opponent. She also has a keen sense of smell and a terrible fighting talent, and can often kill those powerful monsters unexpectedly with various incredible means. One day, when she dragged a huge monster corpse out of the dense forest and came to the town, someone recognized the origin of this monster. A golden-backed saber-toothed wolf comparable to a 4th-level knight. From then on, no one dared to pay attention to her. Later, she formed her own mercenary team. The members of the team were all powerful people in or outside the town, but they were all convinced by her. Recently, because of the news of the dragon, many foreign adventurers have flocked to the town. These people are very tough and powerful. They have complicated origins and can be said to be a mixed bag. Naturally, some of them were attracted by Joanna's beauty and wanted to attack her. But under Joanna's tough means, she killed all the members of a powerful mercenary team in front of everyone, and no one dared to disobey her anymore. Some people even gave her a nickname behind her back, Thorn Widow. Thorns, with thorns. If you are not careful, you will get hurt. It shows that Joanna is not easy to mess with. The widow was a malicious slander against Joanna. After all, she had been married before, although she ran away on the night of her wedding. There is no doubt that this nickname has some meaning of cancellation and ridicule. But when Joanna learned about it, she was not angry, but proud of it and accepted it calmly. At that time, a noble passed by and said after learning about it, "It's a pity that she has no magic talent. Otherwise, she will become a powerful magician in the future." There was endless regret in his words. This sentence pushed Joanna's reputation to a peak in one fell swoop. As a result, Joanna was not only famous in the town, but also her name, Widow of Thorns, was circulated in the surrounding areas. Many women regarded her as an idol. Even those unruly mercenaries, who used to not take women seriously, had to admire Joanna in their hearts when they mentioned her. In fact, Joanna was not called this name, and she was not from this world at all. She was originally a special forces soldier from another world, but while on a mission, she was hit by a rocket and died. She came here accidentally and possessed Joanna's body. The day she arrived was the day of Joanna's wedding. Just when she was about to be violated by the old man, Joanna relied on the means of her previous life to escape from the old man's hands. After accepting the memory of her original body, she knew very clearly what kind of world she came to. This is a world where strength is respected. Magicians are high above, enjoying the respect and admiration of the world. Knights have powerful military force, and can move mountains and fill the sea with a wave of their hands. The church has the power of the gods, and the holy light baptizes everything. And people such as elves, dwarves, orcs, etc., have their own cultivation system. As a special forces soldier, She is not like other traversers who are so fussy once they come, and they are also soft-hearted. The first time she came here, she accepted the rules of this world. She knew very well, in this world, only the strong have everything. After escaping from the old man's house, she entered the dense forest, while recovering her strength, killing monsters and training herself. After her strength was restored, she returned to the town and helped her original body to take revenge and settle all the grudges. Then, she only had one goal left: become stronger. Try every possible way to make yourself stronger. But this town is surrounded by dense forests, there are usually no passers-by, and there is no systematic training method in the town. How difficult is it to become stronger? Just when Joanna was worried about it and continued to train, her chance came. Countless adventurers flocked to the town. From their mouths, Joanna learned the whole story, so she prepared to participate in it at the first time. The news of the dragon's appearance. Countless foreign adventurers. Among them, there are many powerful knights. This is an opportunity for her. But at the same time, it also brings huge risks. But Joanna knows very well that the greater the risk, the greater the opportunity. If she wants to have strong strength, she must get involved and grasp it. She knows that if she wants to benefit from so many strong people, she can only rely on her past life experience. Superior insight, keen perception, and analysis of the situation. This is what she relies on to survive and stand at the top. Relying on these, she carefully wanders between the major forces and slowly accumulates her strength. She knows very well that she must win over all the forces that can be won over. When Lin En entered the town, in addition to the Wild Wolf mercenary group, she also noticed it at the first time. But unlike the Wild Wolf mercenary group, what she saw was danger. Endless danger. She felt the breath of death on Lin En. But at the same time, this is also a huge opportunity for her. Therefore, she did not hesitate to show up in person and test it. But what made Joanna very regretful was that she did not find out anything useful. That person was so cold that he was not like an ordinary person. At that time, Joanna was standing in front of him, only a few steps away, but in Joanna's heart, they were so far apart, as if there was a world between them. Although he was in the tavern, he was as light as a god in the sky. His eyes seemed calm, but they contained infinite indifference. It seemed that all living things in the world were just ants in his eyes. Because of this, when Lin En refused, Joanna did not continue to persuade. However, she still subconsciously wanted to pay attention to the other party. At this moment, Lin En, whom Joanna was concerned about, was heading towards the hotel. However, when he walked to an alley, he suddenly stopped. His face was still calm, but his eyes were full of impatience. In front of him, a group of people appeared. At the same time, a group of people also appeared behind him. The two groups surrounded his front and back roads. Tisk tisk, what a beauty. At this time, a big man with a long scar on his face walked out from the crowd behind, looking at Lin En with greedy eyes, and did not hide his admiration. To be honest, although Lin En is a man, he has such a good appearance, which is enough for some people with special fetishes to ignore. Even this scarred big man, he can be sure that there is nothing wrong with his orientation. But when he saw Lin En, he still had some dirty thoughts in his heart. It's just a pity. We still have to keep him to sell for money, otherwise. Scarface thought with some regret. At this time, the henchman beside him looked at Lin En and said with a smile, "We are the Wild Wolf mercenary group, kid, quickly hand over the money on you, so that you can still have a way out, otherwise." Otherwise what? Lin En looked at them and said calmly. What? Of course we will chop him up. No matter how you kill him, no matter how you bury him. The henchman said without hesitation. After saying that, he looked at Lin En and shouted, "I tell you, don't even think about running. We are the strongest mercenary group in this town, no one dares to provoke us. Besides, the streets and alleys are guarded by our people, and the town's guards can't arrive. Hurry up and take the money, otherwise you will lose your life." Although in their imagination, even if Lin En paid the money, they would be kidnapped and sold to nobles with special fetishes. The reason for saying this is just not to make things complicated. As long as Lin En took out the money, and they would rush over immediately. After that, everyone looked at Lin En with a covetous look. They knew that the man in front of them was definitely a wealthy man. He had just arrived in the town, but no matter what he wore or used, it was all top luxury. Even the tips were often rewarded with silver coins. He had only been here for less than 2 days, and he had already spent several gold coins. There was no doubt that this was definitely a big fat sheep. After grabbing this wave, they might not have to worry about food and drink in the future. Scarface was also looking forward to it. However, looking at Lin En's still calm face, for some reason, he suddenly felt a little uneasy in his heart. If an ordinary person met these mercenaries, he would probably have wet his pants in fear. But the man in front of him was still as calm as water, as if he didn't care at all. Are you confident? Could he be a magician? Scarface's heart suddenly jumped. But thinking carefully, if this man is really a magician, why would he be alone? Besides, in the past 2 days, the people watching the barrel have seen this man perform any magic. Thinking of this, he gradually felt relieved. But for the sake of safety, he still planned to solve it quickly, so he said, "Boy, my patience is limited, hand over the money quickly, otherwise." He stopped talking before he finished. Just because. A flash of fire had already flashed in front of his eyes. His pupils expanded sharply, and his eyes suddenly widened. A touch of fear appeared on his face, but it solidified before it completely appeared. Magic, magician. As soon as he had this thought in his mind, he felt that his eyes went black and he lost consciousness. That day, the town was lit up with a sky-high fire. It was clearly visible within a radius of 100 miles. On the second day after the fire was lit, everyone was shocked to find that all the members of the Wild Wolf mercenary group had disappeared. Even the base of the Wild Wolf mercenary group was razed to the ground overnight. It was as if they were wiped out from this world by some mysterious and powerful force. Then, everyone understood. A powerful magician came to the town. And the Wild Wolf mercenary group was wiped out overnight because they offended this magician, and even the corpses did not exist. When Joanna learned the news, she was eating breakfast. Then she was stunned. Yesterday, she saw the fire that shot up into the sky. But she did not think of Lin En at that time. But on the second day, when she heard that the Wild Wolf mercenary group was completely annihilated, and the person who was following him also reported what he saw at that time in shock, Joanna's heart was instantly shocked. Magic is so strong. People in this world can actually master such a terrible history. Before, although she knew that this was a magical world with magic and fighting spirit, but in her heart, she did not have a direct understanding of the upper limit of the power of magic and fighting spirit. After all, in such a small town with little information, she could only come into contact with magic beasts comparable to the 4th level knight. At best, they could knock down trees or spit out a few elemental magics when they collided. The power is great, but it is not beyond people's imagination. But now tell her that a magic is so powerful, which immediately scared her. At this time, she suddenly remembered the rumor about magic on this continent. The 9-star great magician can move mountains and break rivers, and destroy cities by himself. The strong man at the sanctuary level, with a wave of his hand, the earth sinks, and the power range affects 1,000 miles. There are also forbidden spell masters, who can make waves in the sea and change mountains and rivers with all their strength. The astronomical magician can change the world. And the final realm of the God of Law is located in the stars, with the law of heaven in his mouth and the law in his words. She originally thought that it was just the ignorance of the world and the exaggeration of magic. But now, she understands. It's not that the world is ignorant, but that her vision is too narrow. This world is much larger, more exciting, and more magnificent than she imagined. This morning, Joanna was shocked by Lin En's strength, and she was more determined to become stronger. The town was bustling for half a month. More and more outsiders came, all of them were adventurers or warriors who wanted to be dragon slayers. They had very hot tempers and would cause trouble at any time. They would fight if they disagreed. The natives in the town were all ordinary people. When faced with such things, they could only hide away in horror and did not even dare to go out on the street. And those mercenaries who were also adventurers watched the excitement from a close distance. For these adventure mercenaries who were struggling on the edge of life and death, watching the excitement was one of their few pleasures. It was even more important than drinking. In such a noisy situation, these outsiders explored and searched around the town, and finally found the traces of the dragon. For a while, countless adventurers and dragon slayers went in the direction of the dragon. Hansen and his group and Joanna naturally followed in the crowd, wanting to take advantage of this opportunity to fish in troubled waters. And Lin En also followed behind the crowd. However, he did not reveal his aura as a holy mage, but hid his strength and followed far behind the crowd. He was not interested in the dragon, but wanted to see the wonderful plot. The plot about Hansen and Joanna. As expected, Hansen and Joanna met on the way to pursue the dragon. Joanna encountered a group of monsters on the road. Their pioneer adventure group could have killed them smoothly, but at this moment, a magic suddenly came and killed the leading monster. Then, a handsome boy walked out of the dense forest under the vigilant eyes of Joanna and others. This boy was naturally Hansen. There were several young women following him, but he still had not changed his lustful habit. When he saw the heroic Joanna, Hansen was immediately attracted. The women in this world are either submissive or soft-spoken. Even female magicians are still modest and polite, with feminine tact. But it was the first time that Hansen had seen such a heroic woman who was no weaker than a man. He was immediately attracted by Joanna's character and agile skills. "Madam, your skills are really amazing, as agile as a cheetah, which is really eye-opening." Hansen smiled a self-proclaimed evil smile and said softly, "Is there anything you want?" Joanna looked at Hansen vigilantly and said in a deep voice. Behind her, several big men also held weapons and looked at Hansen and his group vigilantly. Hansen didn't mind their vigilance. No matter who she is, no matter how hostile she is to him at the beginning, as long as he smiles and shows his feelings in the following journey, they will be unable to resist the affection for him. This can be seen from the women behind him. His female companions were also hostile and wary of Hansen at the beginning, but they were finally convinced by Hansen's background and strength, and finally fell under his appearance and sweet words. He believed that the cheetah-like woman in front of him, although different from ordinary women, would not escape from his palm. So, he thought of Joanna showing a friendly smile, with a hint of seductive evil, and said with a smile, "Please allow me to introduce myself. I am Hansen, from Saint Laurent Magic Academy, a 7-star great magician. This time I came here to track the traces of the dragon and kill it when the time comes. Madam, as you can see, this place is very dangerous. Many foreign adventurers want to get a piece of the pie, so I hope we can form a team and hunt the dragon together. Don't worry, after hunting the dragon, I will only take the magic herbs I need, and the rest will be divided equally among you. What do you think?" Hansen said softly. There was a strong sense of confidence in his words. He believed that no one would be able to refuse the price he offered. However, to Hansen's disappointment, Joanna only glanced at him and the several female magicians around him after hearing this, and then turned around and left without saying a word. Quote. Seeing Joanna walk away without looking back, Hansen was stunned. He wanted to catch up and say something, but the female companions around him were not happy at this time and stopped him. In the end, Hansen could only look at the direction where Joanna left, shook his head and sighed. He felt very sorry in his heart. What a pity, he missed such a top-notch talent. Hansen left with regret. On the other side, Anna and her group continued to move forward from another direction. The big man who was traveling with them asked in confusion, "Boss, why don't you go with this person? He is a powerful magician. If we work with him, we will definitely get more opportunities than we do on our own. Although the opportunity is good, you have to live to get it." Joanna's face was cold and she said in a deep voice, "He is indeed a powerful magician. None of us are his opponents, but that's why I refuse to cooperate with him." As soon as this sentence came out, the big men who were traveling with them were a little puzzled. But before they asked, Joanna said, "He is so powerful, what if he has ill intentions towards us after finding the treasure? All of us are no match for him. Such a magician is too threatening to us. Even if he seems sincere and wants to cooperate with us now, the financial report is tempting. Who knows if he will suddenly feel sick after seeing the treasure? Our lives are our own and must not be controlled by others. We can't use treasures to test people's hearts. Let me tell you a way, the human heart is the most vulnerable to temptation." After these words came out, the big men who were traveling with him suddenly realized. "Boss, we understand. They nodded one after another, and they admired Joanna even more in their hearts. But at this time, Joanna was thinking about another thing. The reason she gave just now was actually only part of it. As a Special Forces soldier in his previous life, he was familiar with various skills, including psychology and behavioral science. She could see that this magician named Hansen had ideas about her. As a woman, Joanna also likes handsome men, and she can accept Hansen's appearance. But the problem is that Hansen already has many female companions around him, and from Joanna's point of view, they all have unclear relationships with this Hansen. Although she likes handsome men, she will never like men with partners. What's more, this person is likely to be a sea king. Because of this, even if he is very powerful and can bring huge benefits to herself, Joanna will reject him cleanly. Never give the other party any opportunity to take advantage of. This was the first meeting and confrontation between Hansen and Joanna, the two children of destiny. Lin En would not miss it naturally. As far as I can see now, Hansen is stronger than Joanna, but his character is weaker than hers. This made Lin En sigh. He thought that a dog can't change its nature. It was because of women that his system was lost, but now Hansen has no idea of learning from it, and still can't change his lustful habits. He will die at the hands of a woman sooner or later. Shaking his head, Lin En continued to move forward. Although this group of mercenaries found the traces of the dragon, it is said to be in the dense forest. But this dense forest is so vast that even if nearly 10,000 adventurers are scattered in it, they still can't cover the dense forest completely. Everyone is looking for the dragon, hoping to get the first place. However, the whereabouts of the dragon are so secretive that it is too difficult to find it without a special direction. They can only use the most stupid method, carpet search. Hope to find the dragon. However, when they were searching like headless flies, Lin En found the dragon before them. This is not because Lin En has any special method. But as a magician of the holy domain, once he encounters a strong man of the same realm, as long as the distance is not too far, there will be some kind of chi collision between the two. Now Lin En is in the dense forest, and the distance between him and the dragon is no more than 1,000 miles away, which is just within the range of the chi of the strong man of the holy domain. In a hidden valley in the vast dense forest, Lin En saw this dragon. A wood dragon that has just reached adulthood and has not experienced the beating of human society. The number of dragons is very rare, and they generally live on floating islands outside the mainland, which is the dragon's nest. Even the strong men in the holy domain dare not approach it. However, because many dragons are not tired of the monotonous life in the dragon's nest, they often sneak out when they are adults or even minors. They come to the prosperous human world and find a place suitable for them, and stop there. Some powerful dragon riders, such as Albert, are very lucky to find underage dragons, subdue them, and become partners from then on. The reason why humans like to find dragons, and there are even young adventurers who want to become dragon slayers, is because dragons are not only powerful, but also have wealth comparable to their experience. Dragons like shiny gems and gold coins. Therefore, in the cave of each dragon, there is a huge and unimaginable wealth. Once the dragon can be killed or even recovered, it means that you can become rich overnight and achieve success. And the dragon in front of him, who has just grown up, is obviously tired of the monotonous life in the dragon's nest, so he left after he became an adult. When dragons grow up, they have powerful strength comparable to the sanctuary. As long as they don't do anything wrong in human society, they generally won't encounter any danger. And this dragon, after coming out, just found a cave suitable for sleeping and settled down. Lin En came to the hidden valley. When he saw the giant dragon, he woke it up because of the holy aura on his body. The giant dragon also has a bad temper when it wakes up. Therefore, when it saw Lin En for the first time, although the giant dragon was impressed by the handsome appearance of the human in front of it, it still drove the wood element in anger. In an instant, the wood element in the dense forest became violent, and the branches of countless trees expanded rapidly, like whips, whipping Lin En. The whole valley seemed to have turned into a sea of whips. However, these whips stopped in midair before they fell. Lin En drew out his staff, and without any chanting, he waved his hand, and countless thunders descended, hitting the trunks of these trees one after another. The thunder hit the trees, and they were instantly charred. The entire valley seemed to be washed by thunder, and the place became empty. All the trees were gone. Seeing this scene, the dragon was shocked. At this time, he was completely awake, and when he felt the faint breath of the holy domain in the air, he realized that the man in front of him was not a weakling. Even if he wanted to, he could kill himself. Under the threat of death, the dragon stood up. His whole body was shining with green scales, and he was dozens of meters long, with a mighty and strong physique, and a strong breath was blowing in his face. But it was so powerful, but it lowered its head at this moment and said, "Human, your strength has won my respect. My name is Ellison, I am a wood dragon, I have just reached adulthood recently, I am not your opponent." Quote, "What do you plan to do when you come to me?" His voice was like a heavy hammer hitting a drum, making a rumbling sound. It fully demonstrated the power of an adult dragon. But under this power comparable to that of a strong man in the Holy Land, the words spoken by the dragon Ellison were full of the meaning of submission. Although it has not been beaten by human adventurers, it still knows what it means to face reality. The pride of a dragon can't be forgotten, but it can't be a fool, right? Facing a strong man who is obviously no match for you, you still don't give in. Isn't that courting death? At this moment, Ellison thought of what his father said in front of all the dragons when he was in the dragon's nest. Dragons can't give up their dignity, but they can't be fools. At the beginning, I encountered the legendary god of magic, Vino, on the continent. After I resolutely gave in, Vino spared my life. After surviving the disaster, I planned to pursue the victory and hoped to be loyal to His Majesty the God of Magic, but unfortunately Vino did not accept my loyalty. His father has said similar words for hundreds of years. And every time he mentioned that he failed to become Vino's mount, he was quite regretful. Although it is shameful to give in among the dragons, it depends on the situation. Facing the God of Magic, no matter how low you are, it is not too much. Ellison felt that his actions at this moment were absolutely correct. Even if they return to the dragon's nest, no one will say anything wrong about Zhao. Thinking of this, Ellison thought of the power of this human, so he suddenly said, "Human, you disturbed my sleep, do you want me to surrender to you?" As a dragon, I will never surrender to any despicable human. Of course, if you are willing to give me revenge and let me have enough food every day, I may be able to. No. Before Ellison finished speaking, Lin En shook his head and said, "I have no intention of disturbing your sleep, not to make you surrender. I just want some of your collections." Li, seeing that Ellison's eyes changed immediately, Lin En smiled and said, "Of course, not your gems and gold coins, just some collections that are useless to you." After speaking, Lin En added, "In addition, as a reward, I am willing to give you a piece of information. I believe that when our transaction is completed, this information will make you feel that you have made a lot of money." What Lin En exchanged were just some ancient books. These dragons often have a long lifespan, and it takes a long time for them to grow up from birth. During their long lifespan, they often encounter some young adventurers who come to challenge them, but most of them die under the claws of the dragons. The treasures carried by the young adventurers naturally become the spoils of the dragons. In addition, the dragons will also take the initiative to search for gems and gold coins. There is a huge wealth in each dragon's cave. These wealth include money and knowledge. What Lin En needs are just the books collected by the dragons over the long years. In the history of the development of magic, a lot of knowledge has been lost in the years, but these books may still have records. Although Ellison is not yet an adult, there may be some ancient and precious books preserved in his long years. Hearing Lin En's words, Ellison hesitated. But after thinking about it, he agreed. One reason is that he really can't beat Lin En, and he is afraid that the other party will be dissatisfied and want to fight. Second, these books were not very important to him, and he could barely give them up. With such a mood, the two completed the transaction. Lin En got a lot of books. Most of them were some basic magic knowledge and magic books, including some magic insights and notes, etc. These were useless to him. But there were also some ancient books. The yellowed pages were filled with an ancient atmosphere, and many of the deeds recorded on them were completely different from those circulated on the continent now. Even Lin En, who read in the Royal Library and the Saint Laurent School of Magic Library, had never seen them. Seeing these, Lin En nodded with satisfaction, and then told him the news, and then left. The giant dragon Ellison was in the same place, thinking about the information Lin En gave him in his mind. Humans have formed a huge group, and they want to hunt me. It's really hateful. This group of hateful humans actually want to hunt me. As a giant dragon, I can never tolerate it. Ellison was very angry. Then he quickly packed up his things, left the cave, and slept in a more secluded area. This is not running away. It's a strategic shift. Recalling his father's teachings, Ellison, who was a little uneasy, suddenly became firm. Yes, this is a strategic shift. Just 2 days after Ellison left, the adventurers who had been searching in a carpet-style search finally found this hidden valley. When they saw the traces left by the dragon Ellison before, everyone became excited. Although the dragon was not found on the spot, it was obvious from the traces that the dragon had just left not long ago. What does this mean? This means that they are very close to the dragon. For a while, everyone was excited and began to search more vigorously. This naturally included Joanna's pioneer adventure team, as well as Hansen and his companions. And this time, because they had a target, their search range was greatly reduced. In addition, there were thieves in the crowd. They groped according to the traces left by the dragon when it left, and soon found Ellison's new sleeping place. Giant dragon, it's a giant dragon. We found the giant dragon. This is an adult giant dragon. He is very powerful, comparable to a saint-level warrior. What are you afraid of? With so many of us, we can defeat him even if he is as powerful as the Holy Land. Become a dragon slayer today. After today, my legend will spread across the continent. Kill the dragon. Kill the dragon and rob the treasure. More and more people gathered, shouting and roaring excitedly, with the dream of slaying the dragon. They surrounded the place where Ellison was sleeping and discussed how to deal with the dragon. Although they said they were not afraid, after all, there were so many people gathered here that they could kill him even if they were piled up. But the problem is, who will become the cannon fodder to die, and who will have the last laugh? This is the key. The second is how to distribute the benefits after killing the dragon. For this reason, several powerful mercenary groups and some powerful magicians and knights broke out in conflict, and they did not discuss a proper result for a long time. And just when humans were not ready, because of their noise, they woke up the sleeping Ellison. Ellison, who was in a bad mood when he woke up, was immediately furious. Someone woke me up before, and I was not as skilled as others and weaker than others. If you want to give in, I will give in, I will endure it. But now you ants are also trying to take advantage of me, you are simply looking for death. Ellison was furious. He wanted to kill all the ants who dared to challenge the majesty of the dragon. Then, the whole jungle woke up because of this. In the dense forest within a radius of hundreds of miles, the huge magical elements of the trapped attribute between heaven and earth were rapidly rioting. Countless plants began to grow wildly, and branches turned into sharp swords and fierce whips. The bodies of countless human adventurers were pierced. Many of them only had the dream of slaying dragons, but their own strength was not strong, so when facing the killing moves of the dragon, they had no ability to resist and easily buried their lives. In a short period of time, most of the thousands of human adventurers gathered here were killed or injured. The other half of the people also fled in panic towards the outside of the dense forest. They were all scared out of their wits. But at the same time, there were also a very small number of people who endured such a terrifying power and came to the giant dragon Ellison. Then, they raised their swords, cast magic, and attacked Ellison. Among this group of people, some of them came from mercenary groups, and some were nobles, mixed with magicians and knights. They are all very strong. Of course, the strongest one is Hansen, who is at the level of a 7-star great magician. In the battle against the dragon, Hansen performed very well and became the main breakthrough point, causing great damage to Ellison. When the battle lasted for half a day, many people were injured and their strength declined. And the dragon was also scarred. But his scars and the blood flowing from his body made Ellison even more furious and more powerful. It began to cast the inheritance forbidden spell of the dragon clan. For a time, with it as its surroundings, huge magic elements were mobilized, the ground turned into a quagmire, and the trees became forest knights. The mire buried many humans alive, and the forest knights transformed from trees could often kill a 5th-grade knight with a single charge. Among them, Ellison's main target was Hansen. Even if Hansen's magic talent was strong, he was not a holy roper after all. He was seriously injured by the forbidden spell of the Dragon Clan. But at the most critical moment of Hansen, he took out a magic scroll from his arms. A magic scroll sealed by a holy magician with his full strength. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.